Good afternoon, Middletown School community. My name is Ed Estrada, and I'd like to welcome all of you to this evening's Meet the Candidates Forum for our Board of Education candidates for the 2022 election. Again, my name is Ed Estrada. I'm a 46-year resident of Middletown, 1984 graduate of high school, Syracuse University graduate of mass journalism, a 13-year veteran of the Middletown School Board. Currently, I'm on the Orange Ulster BOCES education. At this time, I'd like to ask all of our candidates to stand and turn around and face the flag and pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty, and justice for all. Thank you. Before we introduce to you our candidates for the Middletown School Board this year, I'd like to tell you some information regarding the Middletown School District election. Voting this year, as you can see on our slides, takes place on Tuesday, May 17th, from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. Voting locations include Middletown High School, Residential Park Elementary School, and the Maple Hill Annex Metro. Registered voters this year will be voting yes or no on the school district's 2022-2023 budget. In addition, voters will select individuals of 9 candidates to serve unpaid 3-year terms of capital education. To view the district's 2022-2023 budget presentations or any information regarding the election or funding for the school board, you can visit the district website www.middletown.org. For any questions pertaining to the budget, contact the district's business office at 845-326-1195. For any questions pertaining to voting, here you vote. Contact District Clerk Karen Clark at 845-326-1196. It's in your hands, Middletown. Show your Midi pride in support of our children by coming out to vote on May 17th. At this time, we'd like to introduce you to the candidates running for the Middletown Board of Education. They are from our left to right, Pastor John Williams, Mr. Russell Hammond, Mr. Andrew Moore, Mrs. Amanda Barone, Ms. Rose Tobiasen, Ms. Denise Romero, Mr. Vincent Crescenzo, and Mrs. Daisha Enriquez. Welcome, everybody. And first of all, personally, I want to thank all of you for taking the time to run for the school board and try to do the best you can with your civic responsibilities. Now, it's important for our community to gauge just a little bit how involved our candidates have been within the school district. I will be asking the candidates to raise their hands to the following questions if they apply. By a show of hands, how many of you are in favor of the school budget proposed by this year's Board of Education? By a show of hands, how many of you are not in favor of the budget proposed by the Board of Education? By a show of hands, how many of you have ever attended in person a school board meeting in the Middletown School District? By a show of hands, how many of you have ever attended a school board meeting at another school district or watched any school board meeting via video? By a show of hands, how many of you have attended a Middletown school event, whether it's a sporting event, chorus concert, band concert, or school play? And by a show of hands, how many of you have ever attended a PTA or PTO meeting in the Middletown School District? Thank you. And now we're going to go on to our questions. And before we do that, I neglected to go over one of our slides that show you the school board forum ground rules. So we'll do that first. By majority consensus, the candidates chose to be seated from left to right in the position they currently hold on the ballot in next week's election. Each candidate will have an initial 2-minute opening statement. The first candidate to speak during the opening statement was selected via a draw that was held prior to this evening's forum. Once opening statements are completed, I will ask a series of questions, some that were generated, most of which were generated by the moderator, and some that were sent to the school district via their website by community members. Each individual candidate will have 1 minute and 30 seconds to respond to those questions. At the end of the evening, we'll conclude with each candidate having a 1-minute closing statement. The general public, as I mentioned, had an opportunity to submit questions via the district's website until Friday, May 6th. Those questions have been made part of tonight's forum. However, most of the questions, as I mentioned earlier, were prepared by myself, the moderator. There is no dialogue between candidates during the forum. However, any candidate can address any issue brought up throughout the evening during any of their allotted time periods. In the interest of time and in respect for all candidates, we will be adhering to our time clock, with the moderator strictly enforcing the time periods. So at this time, we'll begin our questions and answer period. Question number 1, leading off via the draw, Mrs. Daisha Enriquez. And your question, Mrs. Enriquez, is why are you running for the Middletown Board of Education?
Good evening, everyone. I am running for the Middletown Board of Education because I do believe in the public school education, and I also had an incident that took place with one of my children. So I firmly believe that instead of being part of an issue, I wanted to be part of the solution. So that's why I'm running for candidate, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mrs. Enriquez. And I do want to remind candidates, you have the 2 minutes, you don't have to use all of it. It'll just allow us for more questions towards the end. Pastor Williams, why are you running for the Middletown Board of Education?
Good evening, everybody. I'm running because after being a lifelong resident of the city of Middletown, a 1982 graduate, I've seen the ups and downs of this community and the district. I've seen where we've been extreme low points as far as education is concerned and structure and so many other things. And I've seen where we have built a great school district. In fact, it's one of the best school districts in the nation. But I'm running because I want to see that maintained, but also for us to recognize that there's always more to do. There's greater work to do. And I feel that I still have something to offer after being on the board for 9 years. I still have something to offer. There's still great work to do. And so I thought that I would continue to throw my hat in the ring because of my love for this district and my love for the community and love for the people, and especially my love for the students. I don't want to ensure just for my children, for their success, but as I've always said from the very beginning, to ensure the success of each and every one of our students and scholars and children that we have in this community, which is a great community. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor Williams. Mr. Hammond, your opening statement.
Good evening, everybody. Wait, opening statement or answer the question? You got me confused, Dad. Don't do that.
My apologies. Why are you running for the Middletown School Board?
You know, I've been around Middletown my whole life. I've only lived here permanently for the last 14, but I mean, I was here when the Orange Plaza Mall was the place to go Christmas shopping. You know, I've always liked Middletown, and we came back to Middletown right after, well, the darkest days in Middletown. We really did. And, you know, one of the reasons why we came here, though, was the school district. You know, Ken Eastwood was here. You guys had gotten the Race to the Top grant. The district was really coming up, and it was amazing. So I wanted to run this year because I feel like sometimes, you know, people who are doing the same thing for a long time, they lose sight. You know, the expression, you can't see the forest from the trees. Well, you know, you sit up here for 9 years, 12 years, whatever it is, and sometimes you lose sight of everything. You can't see the forest anymore because you're just looking at the trees. And I think we need a change. I think, especially this year, looking at everything that's going on, and no offense, but how some of the meetings are even looking right now, I definitely think it's time for a change. And I want to be part of that change. I want to be a positive part of that change. And I think I can do it.
Thank you, Mr. Hammond. Mr. Moore, why are you running for the Middletown Board of Education? This time I got it right.
Thank you. Just give you a little background. So my name is Andrew Moore. I've been in Middletown for about a year and a half now. And prior to me coming to Middletown, you know, I had an opportunity to not only dive myself into what's going on within the school district. I watched many of the board meetings online. I was actually looking to be employed by this district as well. But I noticed some inconsistencies and things that were going on within the district that made me question about the stake of our district going forward into the future. So instead of, you know, complaining and not being a pillar to be able to be a part of it, to create that change, I realized my background is strong in education over the last 15 years, being in education, whether it's higher ed, being at a founding school called P-Tech High School in the city, and knowing the success that I've seen that could happen in the inner city, I definitely know we could have that same trajectory here. So that's really one of my real purposes behind it. Also, just addressing some of the social and emotional issues that's going on as well, especially coming off the pandemic. I see that there is tremendous amount of areas of improvement, and I'm looking to, you know, have my position there within this district to be able to see the change in the future.
Great, thank you, Mr. Moore. Mrs. Barone, why are you running for the Board of Education?
Well, good evening. I do want to say thank you to all of the candidates that are up here. I think it's a great showing and telling of our community. I do want to say thank you to our Middletown community, and my apologies that we couldn't have you live in the building. Your faces are surely missed. But I will give you a little background about me. So I have been living in Middletown for about 12 years with my husband, and we've been married for 14, and we have 4 beautiful children, and they are throughout the Middletown district, from elementary all the way up. I have an 8th grader who's going into the high school. And so as I've watched them all grow, there are some concerns that I have seen, especially coming from the school board. The school board is the top, so you have to have, you can't have a disconnect with the school board. It has to be togetherness, because we lead from the top. So when we come to school board meetings, I know that some parents are afraid to bring their children in because of what's going on, but my 3 issues that as a candidate are children first. I think we need to get back to basics for education, reading, writing, arithmetic. We need to have more vocational opportunities for our children, especially being such a diverse community. We need to open that up. We need to make sure that our students are prepared for college. We also need to make sure we have school board transparency, and that's through communication, and that's through financial fiscal budgeting, item by line budgets. And then we also need to make sure that we are recognizing parents that are in the community and having parents' rights. We need to make sure that the parents are working with teachers and working with the community to make sure that when we do have our mental wellness days, we are partnering together so we know what those topics are and we can work off each other. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Barone. And I'd like to remind the viewing audience that I made an agreement with the candidates that if the timer went off, they would be able to finish their remaining thoughts on the question. Ms. Tobiasen, why are you running for the Middletown Board of Education?
Thank you, Mr. Estrada. As most of you know, I'm a mother. I'm a 32-year resident of the enlarged city school district of Middletown. I am dedicated to the educational community. I want to see and I want to be part of the continual growth in our graduation rate. When I first got on the board, our graduation rate was at the 50%. We're hoping to get well over or close to 100%. It's now in the 90s. I think the district has come a long way, and I want to see that continuity to continue. I also think it's important that we support all our students. And we need to make sure that we see that our students are prepared to meet the challenges in today's world. I think our biggest concern right now is what the pandemic has done and the other problems that are facing the community as far as safety and security. I want to continue to serve this community as I have in the past as a dedicated board member. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tobiasen. Ms. Romero, why are you running for the Middletown Board of Education?
Thank you, Mr. Estrada. Hello to everyone who is viewing. I've lived in Middletown for 6 years, and it has been by far one of the best decisions that I've ever made. I am currently employed by Mid-Hudson Valley Federal Credit Union, and I am a regional market impact representative for the South region. I cover Orange and some of Dutchess County. My job highly entails leading generation and relationship development. I am in the Community Relations Committee, and I represent the credit union and governmental relation initiatives in my assigned market. I graduated from Vaughn College of Aeronautics and Technology, where I obtained a bachelor's degree of science in management and engineering. In 2021, I graduated from Leadership Orange, a premier nonprofit program in Orange County, New York, with the ultimate mission of bringing together diverse leaders to address community needs, strengthen leadership skills, and empower to make a difference in the community. I have led community-based initiatives, introducing banking to the community, junior and elderly achievement, financial literacy program. I was a nominee for Women Empowerment, Empower Her. I am a proud mother of 2 amazing kids. I have a stellar daughter who has graduated from the Middletown High School in a matter of 3 years' time and is now attending John Jay College. I have a son who is in the 4th grade. He attends William A. Carter Elementary School and loves his school and teachers, and I am pleased with his education that he is receiving. I am in the race because I believe financial education is essential and our kids need financial guidance. Our kids' future matter, and financial literacy will make a difference. Financial awareness is imperative. It is vital that we incorporate independence development programs early on by introducing the importance of credit, saving, investing, and budgeting. Another crucial factor for my race is our taxes. I am happy to know that our next year's taxes will not increase, and it would be nice to ensure this happens for all coming years. Can I say something else? I'm done.
I'm going to give you another opportunity in a second because
Okay.
I messed
Thank
up.
you.
So, and we all know that I messed up. So we'll be going back to that, but I want to continue the theme of our first question. So, Mr. Crescenzo, thank you, Ms. Romero, for that.
Welcome, Mr.
And Mr.
Estrada.
Crescenzo,
Thank you.
why are you running for the Middletown School Board? We will go back for opening statements, by the way.
And thank you to the audience for watching, taking an interest. I've been involved in education for half of my life. I was a special education teacher at the Orange Ulster BOCES and retired after 36 years. I became interested, well, first of all, at BOCES, I was president of my teachers union for 12 years and worked with New York State United Teachers, NYSUT, which is very similar, believe it or not, to the New York State School Boards Association. The goals are the same, the approach might be a little bit different. So thinking of that, in 2004, the district was on its knees. It was probably in the worst conditions that it had ever been. So I've said, why don't you go off for the Board of Education? So I did, and I was elected. And in my second year, I was president, and we hired Dr. Eastwood. And for the next 3 years as president, I worked shoulder to shoulder with him to make sure that things got on the straight and narrow again. Our graduation rates went from, as Ms. Tobiasen said, from about 50, 45, 50, depending on the cohort. Now we're at 90%, and hopefully moving forward. I've got a lot to offer this district. I've invested myself as a Board of Education member. As a matter of fact, every year I take at least 3 workshops through NYSBA. This year I took curriculum development. I took a workshop on how to write a superintendent's evaluation form. The one we had really did not work, and it took a lot of time and energy, and we put one together. Wednesday, I'm taking a course from NYSBA, a 3-hour course, a virtual course on policy and how the changing policies are going to affect our district and how we need to get ready for it. So I still have a lot of work left in me. I've got incredible relationships with virtually everybody in this district. I work well with the administration, the unions, and the staff, faculty and staff, and I want to continue that moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Crescenzo. So as many of you out in the audience have probably noticed, I had Mrs. Enriquez do the opening statement, and then in reminding everybody that you didn't have to use all of your allotted time, I jumped right to the first question and didn't allow anybody else to do that. So what we're going to do is I'm going to let Mrs. Enriquez have a chance to answer the first question like everybody has, and then we're going to...
Answered the question, I didn't do the opening.
Oh, you didn't do the opening?
Yes,
Okay.
that's what
So
it was.
that's good. So now what we're going to do, if we could put 2 minutes on the clock in the tech department, as crafty as they are, I've already put that up on the screen. So now we're going to do our opening statements, and by chance, we've already gotten rid of question 1 at the same time. So Mrs. Enriquez, your opening statement for 2 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Daisha Enriquez, and I've been a member of the Middletown community for the past 9 years. Over the past year, my family experienced great difficulties surrounding a sensitive matter with one of our children and the district's response to this matter. My family's journey to obtain responses for the district's error was deeply troubling. I've attended board meetings, participated, and observed behaviors that were quite displeasing. It was then that I realized I needed to rise above this displeasure and dive deep into being a part of a culture that presents solutions. I needed to lead it and be a part of that change I seek for my family and my community. This is my courage to stand up for my convictions as my child did for hers. My background is in commercial interiors, which falls under the umbrella of strategic space planning, interior design, construction management, budget implementation, and adherence. This has been my role for the past 16 years. I've managed capital improvement projects that range from $20,000 to $50 million plus. I've sat at table with key stakeholders at some of the world's largest companies. In this role, I'm faced with significant challenges on a daily basis that range from personnel, logistics, to finances. My ability to remain true to my character, make steadfast decisions, and collaborate and team with different perspectives made me successful in my role. I am committed to bringing my multifaceted talents to serve this community by building bridges between parents, educators, and community members. Providing a safe learning environment where our children are allotted adequate social emotional learning is one of my primary goals. Let's work together in being transparent with our children's education and serving as their first educators on unity. Our town needs it. Let us set the standard.
Thank you, Mrs. Enriquez. Pastor Williams, your opening statement for 2 minutes, please.
Well, good evening, everybody. I did not prepare any opening statement. I tend to try to speak from the heart, but my name is John Williams. I am the pastor of Faith Alive Ministries and have been in pastoral ministry for the last 20 years, but been in ministry for the last 35 years. I also serve as the bishop of Faith Alive Ministries International, which is a body of churches that encompasses churches all around the country as well as different parts of the world, and have traveled extensively around the world doing ministry work and helping many people, which would include the Eastern Caribbean, Africa, South Africa, Ghana, India, places of that like that. I also am the director of CTI New York, Chaplaincy Training Institute New York, which is a certified New York State vocational school that trains chaplains in the area of chaplaincy for law enforcement and many other areas. I'm here tonight for one reason, because I love this city and I love this district. I've lived here. I am a third generation resident. I believe that I provide a stable and calm voice in turbulent times. People are hurting all over. People are in pain all over. And how can I work other places and not work here in my own home? Our children are hurting, our parents are hurting, the board is hurting, the teachers are hurting. And somewhere I sincerely believe that there's a place that we can all come together and that we can work together to find solutions that would be successful for each and every one of us. So that's why I'm here. So thank you.
Thank you, Pastor Williams. Mr. Hammond, your opening statement for 2 minutes, please.
Hi, everybody. Russell Hammond. Much like Pastor Williams, actually, I didn't prepare anything. I talked straight from here, and that's about it. Like I said earlier, I've been back in Middletown now for actually almost 15 years. Grew up right down the road. The Navy came along and took my wife and I away from New York for a long time. When it was time to retire from the Navy, we were like, well, where do we want to go? And Middletown kept popping up, and we came back to Middletown. And one of the things I love about being here in Middletown is that other people choose to come to Middletown constantly. You know, some of the people on this board used to live down the city, used to live in other places. They chose to come to Middletown. Middletown is a destination. You know, it's not a rest stop on your way upstate. It's a destination. And I love that about Middletown. I do think, though, we have a good changing population, and we need to change. We need to move forward more and more. Currently, I used to work for the district. I'll be full disclosure. We spent 8 years working for the district, actually almost 8 years working for the district. Now I'm a professor over at SUNY Orange, and I get to work with NFA high school kids from Newburgh. I teach them all kinds of cybersecurity and nifty stuff, loving it. But you know, one of the cool things working with the kids directly, I get a different sense of where they're at. And I do like that. And there's a lot of similarities between Newburgh and Middletown, there is. And I think I can bring that experience to Middletown and really help push us a little bit further in a good direction with the students. And that's it. I'll yield back the rest.
Thank you, Mr. Hammond. Mr. Moore, your opening statement for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Russell. Greetings, fellow Middletown community members. I'd like to just officially and formally introduce myself again. My name is Andrew Moore. I was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York, East New York, that is. I'm a proud resident now of the city of Middletown. My wife and I decided to move our family to this beautiful city during the height of the pandemic to provide a better quality life for our 3 young children. After integrating our little ones into the Middletown school system, we begun to notice various issues and problems within the community that we wanted to not only address, but I also wanted to do my part in correcting. As an active member now of Because It Matters 24/7, a local nonprofit group to provide scholarships to local students and organize social events to promote community engagement and learning initiatives. In addition, I've also become an active member of My Brother's Keepers initiative here at the Middletown High School. Currently, previously this past season, I was a head coach for the 3rd and 4th grade youth basketball initiative here within the city. As many of you know, you may see me as a passionate father and parent on the sidelines of old school sports here in Middletown, flag football team where my kids love and enjoy. But to my surprise, I've noticed that the community lack a real awareness. I'm trying to speed this up. And it's truly happening within this district. I noticed that many complaints from our staff members and our parents pretty much go unaddressed, unheard, and simply handled incorrectly. So with the support of my fellow community, I'm looking to share my 10 years of experience as administrative member of the New York City Department of Education, a college recruiter, educational business manager, and operations manager. I understand state and federal budgetary ramification and initiatives that could definitely help this fine district. As a active, 2 seconds? As a board member, I'm looking to not only hear the concerns of the people of our community, but truly work together to get viable answers and solutions to their problems. And I, excitedly look forward to bringing fresh perspectives to this district.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Mrs. Barone, your 2-minute opening statement.
Okay, thank you. So, hi, Amanda Barone. Like I said, I have been a part of the Middletown community for over 12 years, originally born and raised in Staten Island, New York. But as a young parent, we decided to make the move to Middletown because we thought that it would just better the lives of our children, and it has. It absolutely has. So I am deeply invested in this community, and that's why it's so important for me to be sitting up here asking you for your vote, because we know that there are things that we can get better at. We want the best for our children, and that's what this is all about. So I'm looking to just help bridge the gap between the school and the parents and the children just for their future. We need to make sure that we're working hand in hand and we are not disconnected in any way. It has to be smooth sailing from both aspects in order to make sure our children receive the education that they deserve. I know that we have been making great strides through that, but our graduation rate, when you look at it, and when you look at the unskewed numbers, we are not in the 90s. It's closer to the 70s. So we need to make sure that we are focusing on what the needs of our children are. With our social emotional learning, we need to make sure that our teachers are partnering with parents so we can reinforce those topics and those guidelines and have those discussions not only in the classroom, but at home. We need to make sure that we are partnering together and not separating. School and home, they need to be joined. I would also like to address the safety issues that have been happening in the school. I think when we talk about children first, we need to make sure that our children are safe in school, and that's through physical violence, cyber threats, and everything that comes with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Barone. Ms. Tobias, your 2-minute opening statement.
Thank you, Mr. Estrada. As I said, my name is Rose Tobiasen. I'm a mother and a 32-year resident of the enlarged city school district of Middletown. I have worked conscientiously to provide our students with the support that they need to be successful in this ever-changing world. As a member of the board, I've served as president, vice president, policy committee, technology committee, and recently a member of the strategic planning committee and also the code of conduct committee, as well as the audit committee, of which I have served as their chair. Education has always been a very important part of my life. I have a Bachelor of Arts in Psychology, a Master's in Education, a Master's in Library Science, and a School District Administrative Certification. My career started as an elementary school teacher, and this path led me to many rich and rewarding experiences. It encouraged me to pursue a degree as a school media specialist, and then finally as an administrator. I retired from the Monroe-Woodbury School District as a school library coordinator. I also was a peer review for grants for the United States government, the Department of Education, elementary and secondary. My service has always been an integral part of my life to promote both and to assist in literacy. I was a past member and a president of the Thrall Library Board of Trustees, a past member and president of the Ramapo Catskill Library Board of Trustees. Not afraid to ask questions or speak up at the board table, and I would like to continue to serve as a member of the Board of Education.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank you.
Tobiasen. Ms. Romero, your 2-minute opening statement, and hopefully you can finish. If not, we'll give you a little leeway from the last one.
So thank you for that. I have already shared my opening statement, but what I can say is I would like to be part of a board that creates tax transparency for all, including those parents and homeowners who do not speak the English language. I once heard a savvy individual say, if you want to see change, you must take part in it. So here I am today because I want to be part of that change. I have been impressed. We have great resources in our school. Academic achievements have been impressive. This is a diverse district, and the board should reflect our students. I want to fill the void. We need more people representing the Spanish community. I want the students and parents to look at me and feel a sense of relief and comfort. From an academic standpoint, I want to bring financial independence and knowledge. Financial education will break the cycle. I am looking forward to being part of our future growth. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Romero. Mr. Crescenzo, your 2-minute opening statement.
Thank you. Vincent Crescenzo. I've lived on the corner of Watkins and J Street for the last 24 years, married to Lori Lombach Crescenzo. I believe, in my experience, that especially with the Board of Education, the road to the Board of Education is really paved with community service. And for the last 24 years, I've devoted myself to this community. Well, for example, some of these things I already mentioned, 36 years as a BOCES public school special education teacher, 12 years as president of the BOCES Teachers Association, an 11-year member of this board. In my first statement, I neglected to say that years ago it was a 5-year term, and I wasn't reelected after my 5th year. And in a sense, it was almost a relief because those were pretty tough years. Mr. Estrada and Mr. Biason were on the board at the same time. I got my strength back and came back. As public service, I am a court-appointed special advocate at CASA. I work with foster children and foster families through Judge Krahulik's family court in Goshen. And just recently, we found an adoptive home for 3 siblings after being in foster care for almost 3 years. I'm an educational advocate for these foster children at CSE meetings. I'm on the board of directors of the Regional Economic Community Action Plan, RECAP. We work with poverty-level families, provide housing, drug rehabilitation, what have you. One of the things I'm most proud of is that when the pandemic hit in March 2020, I volunteered to deliver food to our scholars throughout the community. I got so wrapped up in it that I did it for 7 months, consecutive months, 5 days a week, and I got to know some of the most vulnerable students and families in our community, and it took weeks to get to know these people. They finally came out and trusted us. So and now I really know how this community survives and what it contains. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Crescenzo. So that concludes our opening statement. I'll ask our IT department if they can now set up the timer for 1:30, which is what's supposed to be the response time. So candidates, if you can please be aware that you now have 30 seconds less to respond to actual questions. We've already done question 1, thanks to the moderator messing up. So we'll start off with question number 2 now, with Pastor Williams leading off the discussion. Pastor Williams, what do you think of public education in general and the role it plays in our society?
Well, first of all, I think public education is one of the most important assets that we have to any of our communities. Public education provides, or it should provide, an opportunity for all students, no matter what their background is, whether it be ethnic background or their financial background. It should provide rich opportunities so that all children, no matter who they are, will have the opportunity to succeed. One of the problems that I've seen, though, in public education over the years and watched, and one of the reasons that I got involved in public education is that it requires great funding. And so for many years, we fought to make sure that we had the funding in order to be able to provide those rich opportunities. And so I would say this to anybody that's getting involved in this race or any race in the future, or those that have gotten involved in the past. It's about those who are less fortunate than us. Because I'm a pastor, there's a scripture that says, so then the strong ought to bear the infirmities of the weak. I'm not trying to be preachy tonight, but at the end of the day, I think that it's incumbent on all of us to make sure that we provide those opportunities for those who are less fortunate than us. And sometimes when we do that, we will find out that that is the most rewarding part of being involved in public education.
Thank you, Pastor Williams. And I'd like to remind all the candidates that if any time, because there are 9 of us, you forget the question or the details of the question, feel free to ask me to repeat it, and I'll repeat the question. Mr. Hammond? Not a problem. What do you think of public education in general and the role it plays in our society?
Public education is just a massive role in society. It is. Without it, I mean, where are we going, right? It's not just about pushing kids to college. It's about getting them the social skills that they need. But currently, I mean, what are we doing, right? In New York, we're over-testing. I mean, you got kindergartners who are being taught to take a state test. When I was in kindergarten, I don't know about you, but when I was in kindergarten, I was playing with blocks, having fun, learning social skills. I don't think that they're learning the social skills anymore. So public education's kind of going off the rails a little bit from where it should be. But it is still very important. It really is, because if you can't read, write, 2 + 2, if you can't do any of that, you're not going to be successful. Being able to work with students directly, especially, Newburgh students, I get to see all the different backgrounds, where they're from, where they're trying to get to, and it's humbling actually to teach. It is very humbling. I didn't realize how humbling it was going to be until I did it, and it is very humbling. But I think education needs to get back on track to where it should be, and it needs to address the social skills. I don't think our kids are getting that anymore. That's it. I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Hammond. Mr. Moore?
Thank you. So public education is very important to the society, to this city, to pretty much the entire world. But I would say, as far as it being the importance to me is the fact that you have to look at it as a whole, right? Currently, we have a young population that's pretty much distracted as far as with the rapid technology growth, the significant social disruptions and things that's going on. So I had an opportunity to actually be a part of a group with Lorraine Powell, who is Steve Jobs' wife. That was about a project of rethinking high school, because right now we have to think forward, thinking of what's needed for the future. And if we stay within the same practices of the constant, just going to school in this industrial style of teaching, we will definitely consistently be steps and steps back amongst everyone within the world. So as far as the public education, I feel like now is the time to actually have a forward mindset and a forward thinking into the next future, because technology is taking over. STEM is becoming more and more important. English and math proficiencies are very, very important, which the district in some of our middle schools, where the key pillars are not being addressed at that level. Kids are underachieving in our English and math areas. So I feel, as far as education, we definitely need to start rethinking our entire plan as far as what we want to do for the future for the sake of our education.
Thank you, Mr. Moore.
Thank you.
Mrs. Barone?
Hi. So I am a product of public school education all through college, CUNY and SUNY. And I believe that is the foundation of our community, our country. What we need to recognize, and just to piggyback off of what Andrew was talking about, is what is the future going to look like for the children that we have now in our schools? So we look around where we are right now in the high school, and we look at all of the technology that we have, and that's great. But how are we making sure that the kids coming in through elementary school, middle school right now are getting exposure to what's happening right here in this room? We need to maybe look at different programs or kind of think outside the box and bring in, I would say, different programs, vocational programs, more STEM programs, and expose the younger children at a younger age to these topics. We need to make sure that they are not only being exposed to it, but gauge their interest and then take it from there. Maybe the traditional classroom setting is not where our future is going. I think COVID showed us a lot about how technology kind of plays a role within the schools. I know my own children come home with YouTube videos that they need to watch and then report on. So when we think about things like that, where is our future going as a public school? We need to make sure that we're setting our children up for success, and those are the discussions that we need to have, not only as a school board, but as a community and as parents. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Barone. Ms. Tobiasen.
Well, for me, public education, it's the opportunities that public education offers. And I think we also have to realize that public education is free, and it's free for everyone. I also would like to say that I think it prepares and it guides and challenges our students. And I think fundamentally that one of the basic concepts that we need to think about is the diversity that public education offers all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tobiasen. Ms. Romero.
I believe public education ensures flexibility and responsiveness to the needs of the community. A board member must value public education and dedicate their time to better the public education. Through public education, each student is guaranteed a sound basic education. School board members take on an important citizen responsibility by overseeing the education of the community's youth. As a board member, one must find excitement and satisfaction in confronting tough challenges and working collaboratively to rise above them and help students in our community succeed.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank
Romero. Mr. Crescenzo.
You need public education to help a democracy thrive. As most people said here, it's free. It's evolved quite a bit. Equal education. And if you wanted to use a model, you would use this school district as a model for public education. We have one of the most diverse populations in the county. The minorities are thriving, high grades. We have specific programs for students of need. In education, K to 3, you learn to read, and 3 on, you read to learn, and that's literacy, and that's one of the hallmarks of our school. Where else can you get 140 free college credits? Nowhere else in this county. When we dedicated a presidential park, presidential elementary, Federal Senator Schumer came down, and he was on the floor playing with the kids, and he talked to Dr. Eastwood, and he goes, wow, you must have some tax base here. This must be like Scarsdale, and Ken, set him straight. He said, no, we have this because we're fiscally responsible. We make sure that the money is there. We save money in fund balances and other accounts, and we're able to do all of these things without burdening the taxpayers. So this is public education at its best, and there's going to be STEM programs for the elementary kids in summer school, summer programs this year.
Thank you, Mr. Crescenzo. Mrs. Enriquez.
I believe, can everyone hear me? I believe public education is vital. We have, currently here in Middletown, we have a large population of immigrants, and it really allows the opportunity for them to change their families moving forward. I think that public education should also be something that's allotted at the college level. I think all sorts of education should be free. It allows, if you look at this country, we're all a melting pot. Not everyone can be allowed the opportunity to be able to pay for good quality education, and I think it's vital. Right now, we are struggling in literacy and mathematics, and I think that that's something that we really need to enhance. I believe STEM needs to be started at an earlier age. Our society is changing, and I think that we need to do a better job as a country to compete with other countries, and it starts with STEM. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Enriquez. Our next question, Mr. Hammond, you will lead off for 1.5 minutes. What do you think are the major roles and responsibilities of a school board member?
Oh, that's a great question. I mean, the school board is really the high oversight, right? I mean, they don't get involved in the day-to-day minutia of the district. They're the ones that sit up high. Well, I don't want to say it like that because that makes it sound really bad, but it does sound bad, I'm sorry. But they're the oversight, right? They work directly with the superintendent. The superintendent is the one that's responsible for the day-to-day running. The school board is the one that, and I just lost some words, I'm sorry. Completely lost my train of thought because it sounded so bad when I said that. I'm sorry. No, but they do, they do the policy setting and stuff like that, but they're not involved in the day-to-day. They're kind of, I'm trying to think of the words to use now because I just lost my whole train of thought. Sorry about that. It's horrible. So embarrassing. It really is. I'm sorry. But, oh man, and I had that slide that Mr. Mitch Williams put up, and I forgot it too. Sorry. You know what? I'm going to yield back because I forgot. But they basically are the oversight of the district.
And that's okay, Mr. Hammond. If it comes back to you, we'll have plenty of times in other areas. Thank you, Mr. Hammond. Mr. Moore.
Thank you. So the key role for the school board is to pretty much guide the school district as far as with budgeting, approving bills, establishing spending priorities, also policy making. Is pretty vital. Design and implementing policies for the school district. Hiring a superintendent, of course. Approving budgets. Approving curriculums, which is very important as well for the entire school board, especially with how things are changing now currently throughout society. Pretty much assessing compliance and also measuring standards for the district. Setting the school calendar, as everyone knows, that's definitely forward thinking and forecasting, very important. And also being a community advocate for the voices of the community and actually being a pillar of the leaders, being a leader of the community to be able to help guide those voices and pretty much transcend those ideas and issues, within the structure of the district to be able to help rely on certain decision makings that goes on. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Mrs. Barone.
So in addition to all of the task, roles, and responsibilities, I think it's important to make sure that we understand the school board sets the tone and the culture for the district and community. So they are the role models, right? The leaders of the community, the pillars, if you will. Not only are they a role model for the superintendent, but the principals, the teachers, and then obviously the scholars and students. It trickles down. So you need to make sure that you have a school board that is acting respectfully towards each other, respectfully towards the community, inclusive with all community members in their communication, and transparent in all of their financial dealings when it comes to budget making and where projects should be allotted and the amounts of money and where that money is coming from, whether that be state aid, federal aid, or taxpayer dollars. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Barone. Ms. Tobiasen.
I feel that the major role and responsibilities of the school board is to choose a superintendent, to set policy, to adopt a budget, the hiring and the accountability of staff. And I remember something, and I think John Perino took this quote from Horace Belton, who was a longtime board member also. We don't run the district. We see that the district runs well. And I will close with those thoughts. I think that's the primary responsibility, that we do see that the district runs well.
Thank you, Ms. Tobiasen. Ms. Romero.
Board member responsibilities include to create a shared vision for the future of education, set the direction to achieve the highest student performance, develop a budget and present it to the community, aligning district resources to improve achievement, propose budget to voters. Currently, we are at a 6.9% on the proposal for next year's budget, adapt and maintain current policies, hire and evaluate the superintendent, maintain strong ethical standards, and as a school board member, one person, well, the members should value the opinions of the members of our community, our schools, and remain engaged at all times. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Romero. Mr. Crescenzo.
Thank you. Yeah, so quickly said, the main roles of a Board of Education member is to hire the superintendent, make sure that we're following all the policies that the state and federal government require us to have on our books, and then whatever else is appropriate to our district, and to work on the budget. But I don't want the public to think that we do that on our own. We need to work closely with everyone, the business office, the superintendent, the director of personnel. We're collaborative. We work with them together. The business office develops the budget. We approve it, but it's not a rubber stamp. We talk about it, and it is line by line. You saw the budget presentation where the sheet, it must have been 30 lines on this one sheet, where every nickel and dime goes. And we either approve that budget or we don't. So we need to be educated. We need to know exactly how things work. We have to understand that I'm talking mostly about money now, but that how the business office is really takes care of is fiscally responsible, that we can put up multi-million-dollar buildings without raising taxes, and that we have money for emergencies. We went self-funded for insurance, and that first year we went self-funded, we saved $2 million. We were part of the BOCES insurance plan. So the key word here is collaboration with the district and all people who are involved with running this district.
Thank you, Mr. Crescenzo. Mrs. Enriquez.
The board's major responsibility is setting policy. The board hires a superintendent who in turn hires staff to put policies into practice. The chief executive is accountable to the board for managing the districts according to the board policies. The board also establishes budgets, sets goals, evaluates progress towards those set goals. They ask the voters to approve bond measures and local option levies for facilities and operations. They also guide the collective bargaining, choose transportation systems, and evaluate the superintendent.
Thank you, Mrs. Enriquez. Our next question, Mr. Moore, you will be leading us off.
I didn't answer.
Oh, my apologies. Thank you. Pastor Williams.
Thank you,
We started with
Mr.
Mr. Hammond.
So I'll not repeat everything that's been said already, because I just will say ditto to each and every one of those that are sitting here at the table, and they have all expressed themselves very eloquently, and so I am in total agreement with everything that they've said. But what I will say in respects to the school board is that first thing that we must also understand is that school board members are a part of the community. They're not separate from the community. And so in a season when, especially after we have just come out of pandemic, in a season when we have had so many different ideas within the community, it's hard, and you strive to try to hear every voice and try to reach every person. And so with that being said, I think that one of the most important things for anybody in any office, whether it be for the school board, that we build the policies that are necessary for success for our district, that we put all of the necessary tools in place and resources in place for the district to be successful, but that we also be integral and walk in integrity in respects to this, and that we would be walking our integrity, whether it's a popular opinion or not. Sometimes the most popular opinion is because we can't always share information. Integrity to me is that I'm holding in confidence information that I can't share, but I still have to make decisions based on that information. And I think that that's an extremely big part. If you're not walking in your own personal integrity, then you can't walk in integrity with anything else.
Thank you, Pastor Williams. Sorry about that.
No.
Our next question, Mr. Moore, you'll lead us off for a minute and a half for each candidate. School board elections are apolitical, meaning that on next week's ballot, none of you will have an R, a D, or an I in front of your names. Despite that, it seems that nationally and locally, politics within school board meetings seems to be growing. In your opinion, should politics play a role in Board of Education meetings and decisions, and tell us why or why not?
So I would definitely say that should definitely be left out of school board, just for the simple fact that we all can have difference of opinions, but our ultimate decision is for the sake of our scholars and our young students here within the district. And if we allow those outside factors of opinions to enter into the school board, we will find what's been going on for the last, quite some time within this current school board, the division and the divide amongst us as, as current school board members and ones that look to, obtain a seat in the next couple of weeks. So if we could be able to remove the outside barriers and opinions and thoughts for the sake of our school board, it would definitely provide a better results when it comes to decision-making and policy changes that needs to be implemented within the district. And I feel I could leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Mrs. Barone.
So no, politics don't have a place on school board, and they shouldn't have a place in school in general. I would even further that by saying personal political agendas have no place on a school board, and they also have no place in school. We need to make sure that we divulge all distractions and come together to make those decisions. If you are bringing your outside beliefs in that may be contrary, it may distract from those discussions, and it won't be successful discussions. We have to make sure that we are keeping our children in line in our minds first, and then partnering with our community, and then, like Pastor said, your personal integrity is what you should be bringing to the table. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Barone. Ms. Tobiasen.
Short and sweet. There is no place for politics at the board table. Our political orientation should not be there at all. And it's no place for us to be sharing our political views. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tobiasen. Ms. Romero.
Politics should not have a place. Politics should not have a place when selecting a school board member, and that is because our kids' education is essential. A board member must be an effective communicator, a community participant, a decision maker, an information processor, a leader, and a team player, and not have any politics behind it, behind the person, pushing them to do anything else. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Romero. Mr. Crescenzo.
Thank you. It'd be hard to improve on Mr. Moore's statement. He pretty much said it all. But politics definitely does not have a place in public school. There are just too many hot button topics that politics would just cloud and make worse. For example, if we talk about LGBTQ issues, if politics got involved with that, we'd be at so many different ends of the spectrum. And God forbid somebody mentions CRT, which is not an issue. It doesn't happen here in the school. It doesn't happen in any school in the state. It's a college level thing. So political hot buttons come and go. What you agree to today could be very different a year from now. And it would just be an incredibly divisive force within the district. So I'm glad that all of us, I'm hoping all of us agree that politics has no place in public education.
Thank you, Mr. Crescenzo. Mrs. Enriquez.
I believe politics has no place on a board nor in a school building or in the district, period. I think that the focus should be on the child's education, and it should not have any beliefs or any politics associated or political agendas.
Thank you, Mrs. Enriquez. Pastor Williams.
I think that we're all on the same page on this. I don't think that any of us believe that politics belong on the school board or involved in the school board processes. I'm encouraged by this particular question because it helps us to understand that we do have a lot more in common than we have dividing us. Politics as it relates to a school board, especially when you're dealing with a diverse community, a diverse school community, a diverse community in general, politics is what divides us. We are in, and the reality is that we are living in a very divided time. This is not something that's indicative to just our, or that's just locked into our particular area and where we live, but this is nationwide right now. And so I think that it's important for us to respect one another, to respect our backgrounds, to respect where we come in, to respect our beliefs. It's important for us to recognize that love will cover a multitude of things if we can move in love. In this season, it's not always easy, but we have to try to do what we can to collaborate together and to work together to drive out the political agendas that we see all around the country. I'm not just talking about Middletown. It's in everything. It's invaded every aspect of life right now. And it's very unfortunate, but it has no place at this table when we're talking about all of our children who come from various backgrounds. They deserve for us all to be concerned about whatever it is that they deal with.
Thank you, Pastor Williams. Mr. Hammond.
I'm actually going to quote one of my students on this one. It was a 10th grader actually said, could you imagine what we could get done without politics? Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, if you have a great idea, it shouldn't matter what side of the aisle you sit on. You know, we should be able to meet in the middle and come to an agreement. You know, it's a travesty when we watch it on the national level that someone will have a great idea. And I'll touch on something Mrs. Enriquez said earlier. You know, somebody could suggest free school. Other countries do free school all the way up through a bachelor's. Some of them do it through a master's. And you could have that idea, and it's a great idea. But if you're the wrong party, I can't agree with you. And that to me is insane. So no, politics do not belong here. They never do. Our personal politics, check them at the door. I don't really care for politics in general, though, but definitely leave them off of the board.
So our next question actually it'll be our first question that came from a community member via the website, and it's almost a little bit in line with the last question, believe it or not. So the question from the community member was, 2 current school board members have publicly supported a New York State Assembly bill censuring a teacher's ability to teach about slavery, the struggle for civil rights, and other periods of American history deemed too uncomfortable. Do you believe the government should have the right to censure what students learn about their history? And Mrs. Barone, you'll lead us off in that discussion.
American history, which I wish we would delve deeper in our schools, that needs to be taught from A to Z. Slavery is a part of our history, and we need to recognize that, and we need to have discussions about that. That's part of who we are as a country. And then the discussions need to go, okay, how did we make those changes? What are we still dealing with? And take it from there. I don't see why a government would have any hand in what is being taught in a school as far as history. There are things in world history that probably aren't too nice either, but we need to know about them. Our children have the right to be educated on them so they don't repeat them. And that's the whole purpose. My personal motto is the more knowledge you give someone, the better off they are, because then they can recognize and make decisions when they're out into the world with that knowledge base. So when they understand where we came from, they can bring us to where we have to go. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Barone. Ms. Tobiasen? Absolutely. 2 current school board members have publicly supported a New York State Assembly bill censuring a teacher's ability to teach about slavery, the struggle for civil rights, and other periods of American history deemed too uncomfortable. Do you believe the government should have the right to what students learn, to censure what students learn about their history? And by the way, I'm quoting these exactly as they were presented.
Absolutely not. I don't feel that the government should be telling us to censor curriculum or censor library books, and that seems to be the latest one. We have states now pulling books off the shelves. So I am absolutely opposed to that completely.
Thank you, Ms. Tobiasen. Ms. Romero?
No, I do not, and that is because learning the history is important to not repeat it, and awareness creates freedom, and one must know to do better. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Romero. Mr. Crescenzo?
This is actually frightening because it's happening across our country, mostly in the South. You look at Florida, you can't use the word gay in K through 3. Not that a student would understand that. In Tennessee, if a teacher, those terms you were using is basically critical race theory. If you do anything that a student in your classroom thinks it's critical race theory, goes home and tells their parents, this is ridiculous. You look it up on the Avalon Project at Yale University. That teacher can be sued for $5 million for doing something that sounds like critical race theory. That's insane. But the part that scares me is that 2 board members would support something like that, and that there is a state senator who is supporting that also. Right now, the only thing standing between us and censorship, which I thought we got rid of many, many decades ago, is a majority. So if this person on the state level gets a majority in the next election, 2, 3 elections, there's nothing we can do about it. We would have to follow that law. But, we're all entitled to a free, unbiased education. And as long as I'm sitting here on this board, and I actually have stopped things before it came to this table that are similar to that, I riled up the rest of the board and convinced them that what was going to happen is wrong, and it didn't get to the table, 2 occasions. So it's close. We have to keep an eye on it. We have to stay alert.
Thank you, Mr. Crescenzo. Mrs. Enriquez?
I do not believe that the government should have input when it comes to learning our history. I believe that all forms of American history should be taught. I believe if our ancestors lived it and were strong enough to survive it, that I think our children should learn it. But however, I do feel that there is an appropriate age that it should be introduced, but I think that as history is taught, it's also taught to unlearn and to be able to move forward to progress, not necessarily to repeat the mistakes that were made.
Thank you, Mrs. Enriquez. Pastor Williams?
Mrs. Henriquez brings up a great point, and I want to thank you for that last statement that you made. There is an appropriate age. Our children are ready for certain things, and when they get to that level, we're preparing them to be able to learn what real history is. The push by certain aspects, and we just talked about trying to keep politics out of all of this, but the push by certain aspects to stop the history that this nation has experienced is absolutely, without question, reprehensible. The fact of the matter is, if we do not face the failures, we'll never be able to address our successes. Ms. Romero said something, and it is actually a quote by George Santayana. He said, "Those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it." And so it's important for us to continue to teach history from different perspectives. We all come from various backgrounds. That does not make my experience any less than your experience, or yours any less than mine. But it's by finding that out, by learning about it, by really diving into it, that we can really begin to appreciate one another. We don't appreciate one another unless we get to know one another. That's what relationship is about, and history is about building relationships with our past and our present so that we can now pave the road to the future.
Thank you, Pastor Williams. Mr. Hammond.
I'm going to agree with what everybody has said, but definitely the age appropriate. It has to be. I mean, these are tough conversations. These are hard conversations. And if you don't do it at an appropriate age, not only could it be bad for them, but they might miss the point to it too. You know, they might not really get it. Censorship, though, at all is really scary to me, because where does it stop? You know, they're supporting something that'll censor something that they don't want, but then what happens when somebody on the other side supports censoring something that they do want? Then they're going to be upset about that, and they're not seeing that, and that's really scary. Censorship has no place, not in history. I mean, we lived it, we experienced it. That would be like not teaching about World War II. You just wouldn't do that, right? It was a major event. You have to teach them, but you have to teach them at an appropriate age, definitely.
Thank you, Mr. Hammond. Mr. Moore.
I pretty much answered most of the question in detail, but I would definitely say that the government should not have a role in censoring history. I would definitely agree. It should definitely be, if it is introduced, it should be introduced at a stage where the students can actually understand the critical thinking behind it and being able to, adjust and apply those aspects into their life to understand what has happened in history and how they can be able to reshape it or look to improve it going forward. So I definitely agree that it should not be allowed, as far as what the government's be having their hands in play to be able to censor or limit what actually happened within history. We should be able to learn it and understand it for as it happened, and how to continue to make the changes going forward to make sure it never does happen again. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. I didn't skip anybody, right? Okay, good. We're on to our next question, and I think Ms. Tobiasen, you will be leading off this discussion. And the question is, please name 2 or 3 strengths you see in the Middletown School District and why you think they are strengths.
Number 1, the budget, keeping it low. This year, it's phenomenal, having a minus 6% increase in the budget, or decrease in the budget, rather. Probably the dedication of our staff as well as our parents, because we are strong because of our staff, but we're also strong because of our parents. They care, they support the school district. The third one, I probably would say, I'm going to use Mitch Williams, where Mitch tells us it takes a village. And I think that's one of the strongest strengths that we have, where we do act as a village to provide our residents, our students, with what we can and make it a better community. Those are the 3 things that I consider to be the strengths in this district.
Thank you, Ms. Tobiasen. Ms. Romero.
From what I was able to observe in our last board member meeting, I was very impressed with the resources and programs that we have available, the academic achievements, as I said before. I'm happy with the budget where it is now, and I hope it stays like that, continues to lower, matter of fact. And also, I like how some of the board members are in fact involved in the community. I like that all of us here today are looking to create a difference and become involved for the better of our kids' education and our communities. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Romero. Mr. Crescenzo.
I think one of the strengths is the diversity of our student population. There are 14 world languages.
I'm sorry, Mr. Crescenzo, can you restart again, if that's okay, because we just started the clock.
Okay. I think the strength of our district is the diversity of its population. There are 14 world languages spoken in this district. The way the students and faculty work together, the strengths of sharing cultures. That's really a positive. The other thing is we've got to say it, the teachers. We've got teachers and staff related to the teachers. They do the most incredible job here. Again, they work with all different levels, new students into the district, bring them up to speed. They're tireless, and I think one of the things that I will never forget is the way this staff got us through the pandemic, those 2 years of remote learning and learning here with all the PPEs and what have you. They should be, they were commended, but I think that was an incredible strength. And the other one is the budget. As Mr. Biason said, that, again, this is one of the more fiscally sound budgets we've ever had. And we can take credit for that, but a big part of it was the money we got from the American CARES Act, $38 million, I believe, which really pushed us up over the top. But they've always been fiscally responsible, saving money, putting money into fund balances, saving it for the rainy day things. A $50,000 furnace breaks at Truman Moon, we can fix it. We don't have to go out and take a loan.
Thank you, Mr. Crescenzo. Ms. Enriquez.
I would say it's the two strengths would be the budget. The financial resources that we have as a district has the power to really change our community through the programs that we're offering our children, even at the lower level from elementary right up to the high school. The other strength that we have is a dedication of the many staff members that they dedicate to our children. There's many of them that may go unnoticed, but our parents are noticing. So I would say I truly, truly appreciate personally the dedication that the staff members provide to our students. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Enriquez. Pastor Williams.
So my anticipation is that when we're hearing this particular question about the strengths, that we'll also probably hear a question about the weaknesses, which stands to reason, because at the end of the day, we got to recognize that there's always weaknesses in anything, and that we have to continue to work, but you have to build on your strengths. One of the strengths, and Mr. Crescenzo mentioned this, is our diversity. The diversity of this community. I was raised up in this community. Again, I'm third generation here, so I remember when it wasn't this diverse, but the diversity of this community is what makes us stronger. It's not the fact that we are all exactly the same, but it's the fact that we all come from different backgrounds, and I said that just a few minutes ago. Is that what makes us stronger? The diversity of our students, the diversity of our community at large. The other strength in that is the programs that are there. There are so many programs that are in place, not just for academics, but there really are a lot of things that's in place for the social, emotional well-being of our children. The fact of the matter is that when you talk about programs, you can't talk about programs and not talk about people, because programs equate to people. I'll say this real quick. When I first got on this board, we were faced with a $8 million deficit, and we had to close up one of our schools, which only saved us $1.5 million. To see that now and to come to this place where the budget that we have is so robust, that we have worked so hard to get there, it encourages me, because I know that we are fighting and striving to go forward, and wherever we are, whoever is here is going to continue that.
Thank you, Pastor Williams. Mr. Hammond.
Can I say Mike Tuttle 3 times? For anybody who doesn't know Assistant Superintendent Tuttle, he's the guy who actually develops the budget. And he can take $1 and stretch it into 10. He's amazing at what he does. And our budget is really a direct result of his hard work. And one of the greatest, I'll tell anybody who asks me, top 3 bosses I've ever worked for is Mike Tuttle. So I love his budget. That's a great strength for us. It really is. You know, all the programs are great, but without the students, all those programs are kind of meaningless. So the students are definitely a huge strength for our district. They really are. They have to be. But the faculty, they're also another strength. I've seen faculty, show up at parent-teacher, meetings when nobody comes in to actually talk to them. And it's heartbreaking to watch some of them get really upset about it because they want to talk to the parents. So those are my top 3 strengths, would definitely be the budget, the students, and the faculty.
Thank you, Mr. Hammond. Mr. Moore.
So the top 2 strengths that I've recognized since being here in a year and a half, I would definitely say is the faculty. I've been able to come across some talented individuals, not only ones that directly teach my little ones, but just even ones that I've been around the district with, being able to touch and be able to, communicate with, sharing their ideas, the things that they're looking forward to going into the future. So that's something that gave me more of a push, want to be in one of these seats, is because I want to make sure that I can continue having a voice, be a voice for them, and actually have them have a platform to be able to have the creativity within their classroom. Something else that I've noticed here is definitely the diversity. I see many of our students tend to, gravitate to those who look like them, especially in many of positions, whether it's administration or whether it's, within the school settings or even in academic or within athletics per se. So I would definitely say those are some of the top two, and also in addition to the tuition, tuition credits that they are actually able to obtain here through the school district. I will definitely love to see that expanded, and hopefully another question comes up, I'll be able to go more in detail. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Mrs. Barone.
So I would definitely like to point out the longevity of most of our staff here. They're honestly some of the best teachers and staff that I have ever seen in any school district. They are dedicated and they want each and every student to succeed. So that is a huge strength for us. Goes without saying, our state funding and the way that the budget is handled. I know that many of us, right, our taxpayers are happy that our taxes haven't gone up, but the resources that have been used with those budgets is amazing. I think we're, like I said earlier, sitting in one of the rooms that can tout to that. But also, like everyone's saying, the diverse culture that we have, not only does it make the students feel comfortable, but it opens up discussions so everybody has their point of view heard. And because we do all come from different backgrounds, we all do have a different point of view. And that's where we leave our politics to the side and have those open discussions. And I see it happening with teachers and students, and it's just amazing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Barone. Our next question, Mrs. Romero, you begin the discussion. And I think Pastor Williams has been to too many of these forums. Please name 2 or 3 areas where you think the Middletown City School District can improve, and how might you help improve those areas?
So as I said before, this is a diverse district, and the board should in fact reflect our students. I want to fill the void. We need more people representing the Spanish community. I am a parent, a mother, a community member, and our children's future shall remain our priority. Being able to communicate with the English language learners will make a difference. We need to pave the road to the future, as the pastor said earlier, and we need to come together to make the difference that we want to see. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Romero. Mr. Crescenzo.
I'm going to put myself in a hole here. Forever, this has troubled me that there are more than 20,000 registered voters in Middletown and 500, 600, 700 people come out to vote. There was a time when, well, my wife would try to encourage me and say, well, they think everything's going well and the budget's great, so, that's wrong. You have to be invested in this district, and you show your investment by coming out and vote, whether you vote yes or no, whatever. And the reason I said putting myself in a hole, I really don't know how to fix that. That would be a huge commitment by the people who are involved with the district and the community. I think our political leaders need to do something with that. But, let's see. Oh, okay. This has come up at board meetings and what have you. Communication between the community and the Board of Education. We bump into people in ShopRite and what have you, but that's not a place to communicate. If I'm reelected next year, I'd like to do some type of a committee with citizens, taxpayers, what have you, and board members to try to brainstorm what we can do either at a board meeting or at another time, so that we can actually sit face-to-face in a constructive, non-abusive conversation to figure out how we can communicate better, because that's really, really essential. I sit here sometimes and I want to say something, you know, I want to say something positive. I don't get the opportunity. So that would be one of my goals if I'm reelected.
Thank you, Mr. Crescenzo. Mrs. Enriquez.
I think one of our biggest weakness, as Denise said, is communicating with our Latin population. I think that we should have at least in every building 2 parent coordinators that actually are bilingual and are able to communicate with our Spanish population. I also believe that we should be working on providing, because we do have the resources to do so, but I think we should be providing some classes to speak English for our Spanish population as well. I also believe we need to be a little more creative with our parent engagement. We just need to be able to bridge that gap between the district and the parents. So thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Enriquez. Pastor Williams.
Repeat the question real quick, please.
Sure. Please name 2 or 3 areas where you think the Middletown City School District can improve, and how might you help improve those areas?
Well, as I said earlier, I think that there's always place for improvement. One of the things that my father used to tell us, I served as my father's assistant pastor for many years. He pastored in this city for 50 plus years. One of the things he always said that the work is never done. There's always work to do. One of the key areas when I first came on this board that I really fought for was an increase in seeing people of color and diverse staff come in, diverse teachers, and we've worked hard on it. One of the things that I really would like to see is still continuing to work diligently in that area to increase the pool of candidates, as well as you know, as someone who comes from a background of public relations and sales and marketing, there's always a way to increase communication. We're all in this community together, but there's got to be a way to increase communication so that we can come to understanding as well, more than having misunderstanding. And I hope no one takes offense to what I'm about to say, because I have 12 seconds left. What I'm about to say is, and I say this all the time, it's very hard to judge anybody when you haven't had a substantive conversation with them. And so I think it's important for us to encourage those conversations with our community and with each other. So.
Thank you, Pastor Williams. Mr. Hammond.
I don't think we do enough for our DAP students. And for anybody who doesn't know, there's a push to call them differently abled peers instead of special needs. You know, we have DAP students who get bused out of district because we don't have the programs here for them. I think I would love to push to get more programs here in the district so they're not taking a bus an hour away. I think we could do that. I mean, we're cutting money off of our taxes. We could get more programs. That would be nice. Another area that we can improve, you know, it's not just communication. It's actually listening to when parents talk. I mean, parents are going to say things that we don't like, and we can't just stop listening because they're saying something we don't like. You know, we have to listen to them, and I mean actively listen. And I think lately we've seen some who they listen to respond. They don't actually actively listen. And I think we can definitely improve that. And when we improve that, we'll see the communication's going to obviously get better then too. You know, I'd love to see that. I really would.
Thank you, Mr. Hammond. Mr. Moore.
I would say 2 areas of improvement that I've noticed within the district that I think we can definitely work on is empowering our staff, giving them an opportunity to, you know, provide new ideas, to be able to encourage, because they do have a strong hold on the community. Those who definitely live here, those who live externally, that look to provide more of an outlet to those individuals to be able to encourage more communication within the district. I would definitely piggyback off of Russell saying with our special needs students, our DAP students, having, I believe, with our resources and our funding and our capital and our budget, we can have buildings and facilities here within the city that will provide a more adequate resources to our parents that have special needs. I spoke to many parents out here that are, it's kind of tough. If school closes and then their child has to go, an hour and a half or 45 minutes outside of the city, they have to scramble to find childcare. I think with our resources and our budget that we have currently, I believe we could find alternative ways to be able to provide the resources for our special needs students. And especially coming off the pandemic, I think we should definitely look to have more programs for social and emotional development for our students, giving them more than just, not every student is going to be excelling within the classroom, but give them alternative platforms and pathways for them to be able to excel, especially coming off of this 2-year pandemic.
Thank you, Mr. Moore.
Thank you.
Mrs. Barone.
So I would say first and foremost, school safety. So I believe that we would probably need to review the security practices that are happening within the schools. And when we talk about programs that are outside of this district, I know that many of us have seen some buses that have been overcrowded, and that plays into our safety needs. So why don't we bring those programs here and make sure our scholars are nurtured here? The other thing that I would like to see happen is perhaps like a parent coalition with regards to curriculum transparency and a more open communication with the school board and teachers, so we can take, social emotional learning days and partner together and reinforce those topics at home. So we're not talking about things that maybe a child has never heard of before, and then they come home with too many questions, and you're like, where are you getting this from? We need to make sure that we're partnering together, especially on those days, to make sure that our students are being taken care of. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Barone. Ms. Tobiasen. Yeah, you can do as many as you want.
Okay. Number one, addressing the issues of school violence, weapons, and drugs in our school. Number two, involving community members to become more involved in district committees. Number three, to improve communication between the district and the community. I have to agree about addressing non-English speaking parents. That's been a very big concern of mine on the board. And the social, emotional, and growth, and the preparation that we need to remind ourselves of the anxiety that our students are experiencing as a result of the pandemic. So I really have 5 ways that I think we could interact and be stronger. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tobiasen. Our next question, Mr. Crescenzo, you will begin the discussion. And this question was submitted by a community member via the district website. If you are elected or re-elected, if you're already holding a school board position, to the school board, how will you help regain the trust of the Middletown community and the integrity of the school board? So once again, if you are elected or re-elected to the school board, how will you help regain the trust of the Middletown community and the integrity of the school board?
As I said in the beginning, I live in a really inclusive neighborhood, and I've been there 24 years, and I know quite a few people, former employees, and what have you, teachers and staff. And as I walk around, and actually when I was doing my petitions, I honestly, in my community, and I would imagine it's other places, I don't see that there's a tremendous amount of distrust. I believe there is some, for whatever reason. We hear it here at the board meetings, but we kind of see the same people continuously. So what I said before, that maybe a way of working around this or solving this problem with the individuals who do have a problem with the district, certainly don't want to ignore it, is to have some type of committee where you can't have 5 board members because then it's a quorum. So 4 board members, 3 board members, we could rotate it with community members, that they could have a group of 15, 20, whatever, and they would decide who they were, have an agenda, and have to stay to the agenda and make sure that everything stays polite and everything. If it gets heated, we'll start another day. But I think that would be a start because there's a tremendous amount of miscommunication communication and misunderstanding. As I said before, I sit here and I'm accused of things that I'm not responsible of or for doing. And it hurts, you know, I would just want to say that, no, that's not the way it happened. It happens this way. So again, having that type of a committee where we could sit down for an hour, whatever, have coffee, whatever, and just work this through. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Crescenzo. Mrs. Enriquez.
I would agree with Mr. Crescenzo. I believe we do need to start with a sort of committee. I do think an agenda needs to be outlined, and I think that that agenda should be followed for whatever series it is until that transparency is restored. I also do believe that there needs to be more engagement from the elected community board member and specific to certain programs. I think we need to get out there more and speaking with our community so that we can kind of restore the trust. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Enriquez. Pastor Williams.
So the unfortunate reality is that we've just come through a horrific pandemic, and I think that all of us to a certain degree have been shocked by what we've experienced. Our children have experienced not being able to socially engage with their fellow students. Many of us as adults have fallen into a place where we've been locked in and we have not been able to really engage as we would have liked to. I think that one of the most important things is finding a pathway, whether it be a committee or whether it be through open forums, whether it be through town halls, something of that nature, to be able to engage with the community, and not just with those that agree, but those that disagree. I've said this earlier. I think that we need to have conversations of substance. We need to have times when we can come together. We're all in this community together. We're all here together. We're all living the same nightmare these last 2 years. And we're not going to come out of it unless we come out of it together. And so I don't know that we all have all the answers, but I think if we all put our ideas together, whether we're sitting at the table as a board or whether we're not sitting at the table, all of our ideas still need to come together to work so that we can find a solution to re-engage everybody.
Thank you, Pastor Williams. Mr. Hammond.
There is a lot of distrust with the board. Sorry to say it. I mean, the community, we were lied to. We were misled. We were told that a process was going to be followed, and it wasn't followed. You can't say that there's not a level of distrust. I think that's indicative, though. Like, you have to step outside of your bubble and really talk to a lot of people in the community, not just one area. And you'll see that there's a lot of people that do not trust the board currently. They don't. When that happens, it's like a dysfunctional relationship. You need to get new people because you can't keep trusting the same people over and over because they're going to keep doing the same thing over and over. So I think in order to rebuild the trust with the community, you need new people on the board. You need fresh faces, you need fresh ideas, and you need people who are actually going to listen outside of their little bubble.
Thank you, Mr. Hammond. Mr. Moore.
So if I am elected to this board, the school board, in order to regain the trust of this community, what I've learned over this past few months, out there knocking on doors in many of the community areas that never seen anyone that's currently serving on this board ever present within that community. I think we need to continue, or those who are looking to be on the board going forward, is actually getting into the community day to day, anytime you can, to actually meet many of these homeowners and current parents and caregivers and guardians that had many issues with this district, and many have been unheard. So in order to correct that, yes, you do need new faces. Yes, you do need new spaces for them to be able to, address and actually have their feelings and their thoughts heard. But we also need action. We can no longer sit back and allow the same old status quo day to day that goes on within the district. Although there's not too many that come out to the board meetings, but I'll definitely look forward to having that number increase with brand new ideas and people that come out to actually really understand the true essence of what's going on within the district so they can actually encourage their fellow neighbors to be able to see that there are those that sit in these seats that actually really do care, that want to really hear your voice and be heard. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Mrs. Barone.
So I think it starts at the actual meetings themselves. So like when we're sitting here today and we don't have the general public present, we need to make sure that the general public that does come to the meetings are being heard. Now, whether that be hearing them in the beginning of the meeting and at the end of the meeting, I believe that is what I've been hearing since I've been out in the community. They want their time. Making sure that the board meetings are tailored with parents in mind, with the community in mind. Sometimes we don't have 4 hours to sit in a room and listen to whatever is happening, especially when the agenda isn't published prior. So being transparent is not just getting out into the community. Being transparent is making sure that the community knows what is going to be discussed, that they know, that they trust that they're going to have their time at the microphone, that they will be heard, and that they're going to see my face, our faces, out there, hearing them, talking with them, and inviting them to come to the meetings. I know many of us have met separately at certain events, and we have all discussed about parent coalitions, meeting with the board, meeting with teachers, so we are all on the same page, so there is no disconnect, and we can start building up that trust again. I think that's what we need to build towards.
Thank you, Mrs. Barone. Ms. Tobiasen.
I would agree that we have to get the community more involved. I've been, as my fellow candidates here tonight have been discussing, I was trying to think, how do we get and motivate the people to come out and get involved? I'm not sure yet to give you an answer on that, but I also thought that perhaps communication, and maybe when the school, what does it come out, quarterly, the newsletter, that maybe there should be a corner or a letter or some type of correspondence from the board/board president so that the community is aware of responsibilities. We're here to listen. And that's, I think, one of the biggest difficulties in the district is that there's a fear, whether it because they're not speaking English or there's a different fear. But we need to eradicate that fear and make people feel comfortable that they can open up and their communication is there, as well as becoming more involved at the school district affairs.
Thank you, Ms. Tobiasen. Ms. Romero.
If elected, I will help with regaining the trust by serving as the liaison between our students, their parents, and our school staff. We should create transparency. I will help with mediation. We should come together and discuss matters affecting our community. Owning the issues is crucial. We must all be held responsible. Parents must be more involved. Students must be open to change. And as a board member, I assure you, I will be an effective communicator. I will lead by example and remain involved with our students, parents, teachers, and the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Romero. Our next question, Mrs. Enriquez, you will begin the discussion. This question comes from the community via the website. As a school board member, what can you do to stop drugs within the school district, especially in the middle schools?
Well, I would say I would start with school safety. I would start with bridging the communication between our local police department to work with our school safety to kind of provide education when it comes to the current drugs that are being used out in the streets. I would encourage not only bag checks, but as well as inviting the parents to come in and sit down in these forums. I would say that it's vital, and I'll be brief. We had a certain incident that took place in my community, in the community that I currently live in, and it was in regards to the vaping. The engagement between the parents, when certain things arise, communicating with one another is crucial. We don't know who our children are when they leave. We know what we raise at home. So we just need to work together to instill those values. So it's a collaborative effort within the local police department and the parents and the school district. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Enriquez. Pastor Williams.
So I will add to this that it's grieving. I grieve over what our young people are experiencing. I grieve over this generation and what we're seeing as it relates to drug use and vaping, and even with the fights and the violence. I grieve. We can partner with police officials. We can do all of these different things. But one of the things that was even said to me recently in a conversation with Dave Hoovler, who is the county DA, is that much of this can't be policed. And if we can't police it, then that means we have to go back to one another and rely on one another. One of the things that I've always said is that my children are my children. I entrust them to the district, but they're my children. I think that we have to get to a place where we do, Ms. Enriquez said it, we have to communicate with parents, but also there needs to be a greater accountability at every place and every level. I'm responsible for my kids. I might not know everything that they do when they walk out the door, and that's the truth, but I'm responsible to teach my kids what's right and what's wrong. And we need to partner in that. We need a village to be able to teach these young people about the downside of being involved in these different things that is plaguing the world right now.
Thank you, Pastor Williams. Mr. Hammond.
I'm definitely in favor of random bag checks. I think that would help, but it's not just programs to educate the students. I mean, we know we need the programs to educate the students. We definitely need that. But we need to educate the parents on what to look for. A lot of parents don't know the signs. They don't know what to look for. Is their child vaping? Is their child sneaking out doing drugs? A lot of parents just don't know the signs to look for. So I think if we're going to do programs, I think we have to include the parents and the children. And, I think, Pastor, you said, we can't always police everything, Our kids are our kids. We have to take care of them also at home. And I think if we do that, a good partnership with the parents and teach them what to look for, I think we can definitely make a dent in it.
Thank you, Mr. Hammond. Mr. Moore.
I would say it would definitely start with providing some innovative some more collaborative programs that create intervention as far as amongst the students to understand what's right and wrong. I believe because many of our parents do commute a lot through the city, and majority of the day they are not available to be able to be present to see what's going on. I believe if we could have more of a community aspect, caretakers and those who are home during the day to be able to bring more awareness. Definitely within the school district, having opportunities where students can understand what the cause and effects of what they do if they decide to do this for long term. Having safe spaces for them. If they do see something that's going on where they don't have to feel as if they're, telling on their fellow student, but actually bringing awareness to be able to help the district and help the administrators in the school to be able to know the signs where these students are possibly getting these particular drugs from. I think it will take a community effort. It will take a village, as Mr. Byington mentioned. It definitely takes a village, and I think collectively, as a whole, as a parent group, we will be able to curb this unfortunate situations that's going on within our community, and especially at the middle school level, which I feel it's very heavily rampant, which is most of the 2 key pillar years that happens for any child in education. So if we could be able to stop this early, we will be able to control the outcomes.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Mrs. Barone.
So unfortunately, it's going to be very difficult to find drugs on a student, and that's just the reality of it, whether it be a pen or a vaping pen or what have you. I guess the bigger question is what happens after we do find it, right? After we realize that somebody is vaping in the bathroom and there's a line of 13 girls or boys that can't use the restroom because of somebody doing drugs in the bathroom. What happens then? Do we reach out to the parents? Of course we do, right? What does that look like? So is education going out with signs, what to look for in their backpack before they leave, when they come home? Maybe that needs to happen. What needs to happen after that one student has already vaped or been caught once, twice, 3 times? What does that look like from a district perspective? What does that look like for all of the good students who are doing what they need to do and going to class and getting good grades and being on time and not using drugs within our schools? Should we be subjugating them to random bag checks? I don't think so. I don't think that that's the answer. I think education is the answer, and then taking those students who may have a problem and determining what that may be. Do they need more social emotional development? Do they need a one-on-one with a counselor? And then finding them that help. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Barone. Ms. Tobiasen.
I think that we need to continue our partnership with the police agencies that we are working with now. I think that the biggest culprit is social media, and we can't do that alone. The school cannot do it alone. We need the help of the parents. They need to be checking to see where and what their children are doing on their iPhones or on social media. As I said, we cannot do it alone. We need the help and cooperation, which we've established with the police agencies, and I believe that they have been very, very cooperative with our district.
Thank you, Ms. Tobiasen. Ms. Romero.
To stop drugs, we should come together with, 1, the parents, as they must have certain conversations with their children. There must be some type of accountability. 2, the police to help apprehend the suppliers. We should have communication. Communication is going to be key. We must conduct drug discussions jointly with the parents and our kids. We should provide some type of intervention programs, provide positive outlook programs and extracurricular activities based on what it is that the kids are looking to do that motivates them and that will help guide them in another direction and steer them from drugs.
Thank you, Ms. Romero. Mr. Crescenzo.
I don't want to make it sound like things are not being done here in the district. Never before has our district had a better relationship with the 2 police departments, and that's primarily due to Superintendent Creedon. They meet once a month, they talk about these issues, they come up with plans, they have other people in with the discussions. We can't look at every bag. If they're a random bag search, at the high school we have the metal detectors, and that has really diminished the vaping problem. Buildings and Grounds finds literally 25, 30, 40 vape pipes on Gardner Avenue. They ditch them before they get here. And some of the programs that Superintendent Creedon is recommending and actually have gone into effect. So for example, now we're going to have a second SRO at the high school. We only have 1 there. An assistant director for security. There was 1 director of security, and he's locked into the high school with all the issues going there. He can't travel to the other buildings. We have, in mental health, we hired 12 new social workers that conduct drug information. We do social emotional learning, combines a half-day conversation and, if necessary, a half-day of rest and refresh. We support awareness of social media, which is probably the most crucial problem we have. All the fights that have happened in the high school have been, not all, 99% of them have been a result of social media. This person was talking to that guy's girlfriend, and bam, the next day they bring it into school. The families have to be involved, and they are. And they are. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Crescenzo. So I'm going to make a couple of announcements. Several of our candidates are unable to attend tomorrow's scheduled forum. So I'm going to extend this evening's forum for an additional half an hour from 9 o'clock to 9:30, and then we will postpone tomorrow's event. I think we'll have sufficient enough questions, but I do want to have enough time to make sure that all of the questions that the community submitted get answered. So many of the next ones that we have will all be community questions that were sent in via the website. And once we're done with those, we'll see where we're at. If we have additional time for some more moderated questions, we'll do those as well. But 9:30 is my commitment to you, and then you all have a day off tomorrow, as well as the moderator. Next question begins with Pastor Williams. And again, this one is a combo question between myself and the community member. The community member had asked what plans you have as a prospective school board member to restore safety to our school buildings and our buses. I also had a question regarding safety. So the overall question is, do you think that overall Middletown City schools are safe? If not, what do you think are the safety issues, and what would your suggestion be to address them?
Well, first, that's a good question. Thank you. So overall, let me say this: I have one son that graduated last year. I have a son that is here in the high school. I have a daughter that's in Twin Towers Middle School. I have a wife that works in the building. Ultimately, as a father and as a husband, I feel that my family is safe, and I understand the efforts. But what I do understand is that we are in a season when we are dealing with things that we have not ever seen before. I do believe that we need to increase security. I do believe that there needs to be a viable move toward providing consequences and accountability for certain behaviors, while at the same time providing a restorative plan that's going to help restore our children. What we're seeing in violence now, and the uptick of violence around the country and even here in our schools, is a result of what we've experienced the last 2 years. And if we be honest, even we adults have been affected. None of us are coming out of this unscathed. So we need to continue to work. But the time is now. The time is now in order to increase. I don't want to see a prison to pipeline, but we need to make sure that our families and our children are safe without question.
Thank you, Pastor Williams. Mr. Hammond.
Can you repeat that?
Sure. Do you think that overall Middletown City schools are safe? And if not, what do you think are the safety issues, and what would your suggestions be to address them as a board member?
Overall, I'm going to say overall, they are fairly safe. Overall, as a majority, yes. Do we have a lot of fights? Yes. It's not just a small handful of people. You can look it up. I mean, there's hundreds of kids online posting these fights. So it's not just a small group. You know, I'm glad that we're getting an assistant director of security, because it was, over 10 years we didn't even have a director of security. So it's nice to see that. I think we need not only more security, but we also need better trained security. We need them trained according to the grade level, though, that they're going to be addressing. You know, you can't take somebody who's, I'm probably going to take a lot of heat for this, but you can't just take a CO or a former, a retired CO and put them in an elementary school. That doesn't always go over well. And I'm going to take a lot of heat from that. I got friends. I know they're going to give me some grief for that one, but I think everybody understands what I'm saying. They need to be trained according to where they're going to be. And I think there's a lot of sensitivity that they need to handle also. I mean, we have to get to the root reason of why the kids are fighting so much. That's a big thing. And I don't agree with the out-of-school suspension. You know, a lot of students look at a day of out-of-school suspension as a vacation. I'm a big fan of in-school suspension. You put them in in-school suspension, they have to wake up in the morning, they have to get on the bus, they still have to go to school, but they're away from all their friends and they're in a room and it's in-school suspension. That's more of a punishment than giving them a day off from school.
Thank you, Mr. Hammond. Mr. Moore.
I would say to address some of the safety concerns, I would say overall, I would say we're probably at, if you give it a grade, we're probably like at a C for the school district. I would definitely agree that we do need to train our current security personnel that we have in the school, giving them more of an insight of what it actually takes to be able to be of a security guard. We can't have individuals that will, just feel like it's just a job. They have to take it at a different level as far as understanding and seeing the entire landscape. I would also address the schedule changes in the policies. I've noticed that, speaking with some of the students, that a lot of the things happen during passing. So for instance, having the bathroom closed the last 10 minutes in the first 10 minutes of classes to reduce the overall time that students are, they'll be more focused of getting into school, into the classroom, than having to go to the bathroom, and then things may occur. Also looking to implement policies where you actually remove the cell phone from out of the students from a particular day. I've seen great success in that in some of the schools that I've been able to manage, where we're able to remove that social aspect from them, and I gave them actually more of a direct focus on what they came to school for, which is education.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Mrs. Barone.
So I would say that overall, yes, the Middletown City Schools are safe, but there have been a number of incidents that I think we're all aware of, and we want to make sure that our schools do stay safe. So I think there's a few things that we can do. One, I think we need clear and concise expectations of our security teams. We need to make sure that they have the proper training on what to do in certain circumstances, what to do when you find drugs, what to do when you find, a fight, things like that. Also, we need to have clear and concise expectations for each student and each parent, so everybody understands what the guidelines and the principles are when you walk into any of our buildings. No drugs, you are ready to work, and things of that nature. I also think that we need a review of each school so we can address sort of the root causes of certain things, like Andrew had mentioned about the bathroom. That has been a huge issue, especially in Twin, where the bathrooms really aren't being opened up, or some are being locked for students, which has been causing issues. And then after all of those policies are done, I think we need to have a 3-strike policy. So you're caught once, maybe that's a write-up or a detention. 2, in-school suspension. 3, transfer of schools. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Barone. Ms. Tobiasen.
You saw that I was writing very quickly here. I mentioned earlier that in the district there is this Strategic Planning Committee. I happen to be the board representative on that committee. This was a topic that we addressed, and at the end of the school year, this plan will be presented. The committee is made up of students, community members, and staff. Included in the staff was our director of security. I think that in the discussion, there were subgroups, and safety was one of the subgroups. I think one of the surprises to me was the openness of both the students and the community members to share some of the problems that they saw, not only in the school building, but also on buses. So I'm going to sit here and say very confidently that I think you're going to see a difference in the security and the safeties in this buildings, in all the buildings. There is a code of conduct, and if students are caught, or then there are subsequently penalties. I'm going to use the word penalties. I don't like using that, but there is consequences if the code of conduct has been violated.
Thank you, Ms. Tobiasen. Ms. Romero.
To restore safety, we must all be held accountable. There should be consequences for violent actions. We should all know to respect boundaries, and if we don't, we should learn them together. We should come together with parents and be open to recommendations. We should always work together. Let's all get involved, and let's practice communication.
Thank you, Ms. Romero. Mr. Crescenzo.
Could you repeat the question again, please?
Sure. Do you think that overall Middletown City Schools are safe? If not, what do you think are the safety issues, and what would your suggestion be to address them?
Thank you. It's interesting to listen to some of the comments here because some of the things that were recommended are actually already in place. We're in the middle of a district-wide comprehensive security audit of all of our buildings, and from that, they're going to determine where security needs to be strengthened, what we can do to improve it. The security personnel actually is very well trained, and if they do have a problem, there's remediation, and if it's not working out, they're dismissed. I mean, there's no second or third chance. And at this time of the year, this doesn't carry for the entire year, but this last quarter, there's this, I don't want to call it a zero tolerance, but in the high school, some of the major problems, if you commit one of these problems, you're warned. The second time, you're suspended. So there's no dragging it out, and there are consequences for your actions. Let's see, what else? There are 2,400 kids in the high school, all varying emotional situations, what have you. I think the district is doing everything it can possibly do to solve this problem, work on it. There's no solution to this problem, I don't think, that you're just going to constantly be working to make it better, because once you fix this part, another part's going to pop up. They are not standing still. But someone said here something about a coalition with the parents. That is extremely important. We can't do it here. It has to be done at home. It has to be checked at home. Social media is probably the major problem causing these situations.
Thank you, Mr. Crescenzo. Mrs. Enriquez.
I do believe overall our schools are safe. However, there's a couple of things that I would like to suggest. The first one being that the buses are overcrowded. I do believe that after a certain amount of students, I believe that every bus should have a school monitor, and it would limit some of the issues that we're seeing on the school buses. I would encourage social media workshops with both students and parents alike, and I think that should start at the middle school level. I think that the school, I was actually sitting in the lobby the other day, and they had some great information on what to look for and how to, go on an iPhone and shut out certain features. However, not all the parents are aware of that. Mm-hmm. So some parents may not be as tech savvy as others. So providing that education is key with the parents. I also believe when it comes to disciplinary actions, it should be a tier process. I do believe that we should kind of encourage some sort of community service depending on the offense. And I think that the practices should be surrounding restorative practices. And I also agree with removing the cell phones. And the last one, well, two more before I cut off, being that the removal of the cell phone services, if I repeated that, I apologize. But the coalition of parents is vital. I think that the parents need to work with the district. The district should not be responsible for parenting your child. I think that this is something that needs to be done in collaboration. It's a team effort. And sorry, before I'm cut off, the last one, just surrounding security training. I think that each security staff member needs to be trained at the staff level, at the, grade level that they're being servicing. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Enriquez. Our next question, Mr. Hammond, you lead off the discussion. This also came from a community member via the school district website. The school board recently selected its superintendent without community input. Do you approve of the way the board selected the superintendent? And as a board member, would you have done the same thing? And if not, how would you have handled it differently? Are you okay with that, or do you need me to repeat it?
No, I'm good. I'm good. No, I don't agree with how it was handled. I don't. We were told it was going to be one way. We were told it was going to be that way. We were told it at probably 4 times, 4 different meetings. We were told it was going to be one way, and it wasn't done that way. And to me, that breaks the trust. You know, if you say you're going to do it, you do it. You're only as good as your word. And if you give me your word that you're going to do something, you should do it. You really should. I do have to add, though, almost 8 years in the district, I worked with Mrs. Creedon. She was never anything other than personable, polite, and respectful the whole time. So I don't disapprove of her at all. But the way it was handled, definitely disapprove of that. There should have been the search that we were promised. There should have been viable candidates brought up. There should have been an interview process. And if she was the best candidate, then she would have gotten the position. And that's the way we were told it was going to go, and it didn't go. So if I'm elected, that would not happen. I'm only as good as my word. That's it. And once you break that, I'll never trust you again.
Thank you, Mr. Hammond. Mr. Moore?
I am not in agreement to how the selection was handled, especially coming off of this intense year that we have experienced with this district. The actions that have been taken, not only currently, but even at the start, there's been a lot of distrust, and it has definitely trickled throughout the entire school year and even till currently now. Going through that process and not having an open opportunity for us to really have a national search to be able to, find that right particular candidate to run this district, especially coming off of the many challenges that we have faced, has put this district in a tough position now currently. And as everyone knows, who are definitely in tune and aware of how things are being done, we can no longer continue to move with own personal agendas and things that are in place for things that supersede the real purpose of this district. Now, to say that, our current superintendent is not at a position where to be able to excel, but I felt like they did a major disjustice by not having a national search and have her really outshine if she was, quote unquote, to be the best candidate, to go amongst many of her other peers to see whether or not the district and also the city and the community see if she's the most valuable person for this district going forward.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Mrs. Barone?
So I guess this goes back to school board communication and transparency. So no, I don't agree with how it was handled. Whether or not I agree with who we chose is not the question. But I would say this, if situations changed from the course of time where the public was told we were going to have a search to when the decision was made, then that should have also been told to the public. So I'm not sure where the disconnect there was, but I think that's what we talk about when we say we're not trusting right now, because that should have been part of the discussion, or should have went out in an email. Middletown sends out emails all of the time. So things like that can be used to make sure that the community has communication. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Barone. Ms. Tobiasen?
The criticism is understandable. However, the board saw the qualities in Mrs. Creedon and what she was doing in the community to bring it together. Her relationship and communication with the mayor, with the supervisor of the town of Walk Hill, with the police agencies in the area, with her outreach with the community, with, I think she calls it Talk About Tuesdays, with the budget presentations that her and the Assistant Superintendent for Business, Mr. Tuttle, have been doing to make the community more aware of, and probably, and it's a word that I have trouble with, transparency. I think they have tried to be as transparent as possible to keep the community informed. So I take the criticism, it's understandable, but I also have to say, and I don't think anybody else disagrees, we made a good choice in the way, the person that we selected.
Thank you, Ms. Tobiasen. Ms. Romero.
What I can say is that she has been here for some time. She was knowledgeable, well-educated, proficient in her role. There should have been an open interview process if that was something that was in fact promised. But I can also say is that she's running a $200 million business, over 1,000 employees, and about 7,200 students in all of Middletown, spread over 7 schools. If she is incapable of efficiently handling her duties, time will tell. That's all I can say.
Thank you, Ms. Romero. Mr. Crescenzo.
I would need more than 90 seconds to talk about this.
You only have 90.
I understand. Let's see, so November, December, Superintendent Del Moro tendered his retirement. The district was slipping into a crisis. We had some personnel issues that were very, very serious. Mrs. Creedon knows this district. She knows the community. She has endless energy. And from I can't remember the date. So let's say November, when Superintendent Del Moro retired, we watched her, Mrs. Creedon, perform. And she met benchmarks that we haven't even set yet. And her ties with the community and the programs she was putting in, building strength within the district, dealing with these serious personnel issues legally and responsibly. To hire somebody to come in, I was part of a superintendent search. It takes months for a new person to get their feet on the ground, months. We did not have that time. I will admit the serious mistake, I'll take responsibility for this, the serious mistake that we made was, someone said here, we did not inform the public of where we were, that this is the person for the job. We're not going to, and you know what? Middletown is a place where superintendents will come to serve out their last 3 years because it's a high-paying superintendency. They come in here, they work for 3 years, and they retire. We have a person that's here for the long run. She's going to be here for a long time. Race to the top grant, got $20 million to this district. She did it on her own, and she did just such a good job. They gave us another $10 million on top of that. So we got the right person for the right job, at the right time, and I'm sorry that the process didn't go as expected.
Thank you, Mr. Crescenzo. Mrs. Enriquez.
I do not agree. I believe that the board promised a search, and a national search should have been conducted. I think the trust starts when you follow through on your word. I also believe that we had viable candidates in our own backyard, and I think that we could have done more to kind of elect within our own backyard. And our talent, in general, as a school district, we should be looking in our own backyard first. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Enriquez. Pastor Williams.
So, very difficult question because you have incumbents and you have candidates that are running. The reality is that the criticisms are acceptable and they're understandable. I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with that at all. I have said it, and it's probably been documented that I was not in agreement with the process of it. For me, it's a different position. For all you sitting here, I just happen to be the current board president at this time, which is not, believe me, it's not a position that anybody really wants to sit in during turbulent times. And my job is to try to provide a peaceful resolution, try to keep the peace. What we fell into was circumstances that were beyond our control. And I will agree that it should have been communicated better. Can't apologize anymore for that. I do believe that Mrs. Creedon is the right one for the job. You're dealing with 17 districts within the state that were looking for superintendents that were vacant. And Mrs. Creedon was the right one for this job. I would love to have done things better, but because I don't have the option of being able to share all of the circumstances behind it, and it would really seem kind of petty to try to do that here, I would just say I apologize, but I'm hoping that we can come together and move forward. And I'll say this: I know my time is I stand by my integrity and I stand by my character, and I would hope that we find a way, again, to talk and come to solutions to continue to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor Williams. Our next question, Mr. Moore, you will lead the discussion. Again, it is from a community member via the website. At one time, superintendents were required to live within the confines of the school community where they worked. Would you be in favor of reinstating the requirement for future superintendents to live within the boundaries of the Middletown School District?
I would agree, absolutely. I feel that it's such a vital role, and leader, you need to actually be within the community that you serve. For you to make certain critical decisions and then have to get on the highway and leave, as mentioned, certain future superintendents and superintendents can actually come here and they say, load their retirement up. But why not have that same person live within this district and be able to give back and serve and have those resources that we are as taxpayers given to them for financial gain, have them live within the district, have them be around the community that they serve. You want to regain the trust of the people? Then have yourself placed in this community. Be here day in and day out. Don't have an opportunity to have yourself leave out of this community every day, and then the decisions that you make is pretty much not going home with you. So I definitely agree that all future superintendents need to live within the surroundings that they are serving.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Mrs. Barone.
Yes, I also agree that all future superintendents need to live within the bounds of the Middletown district. I think that's the essence of Midi Pride. So when we say Midi Pride, we would want somebody who is part of us, who lives what we live every day, who is not only working here, but involved in our community and knows our people, someone that we see, that our children see, and that helps form bonds and that helps form trust. So I would say yes, if we're Midi Pride, they must live within our boundaries, yes.
Thank you, Mrs. Barone. Ms. Tobiasen.
I think it would depend on who the candidate is. If the candidate has been an employee and has come up through the ranks of the district, or is familiar with the district being a candidate or an employee in another district, I think the familiarity with the district is key here. If you bring in a complete, total stranger into a position, then they should live in the community. But I just feel that it's the familiarity. I can tell you our present superintendent is here before 7 o'clock in the morning, and there are some days when she does not go home until 9, 10 o'clock at night. So I guess I'm being a little contrary here, but I don't think that should be a prerequisite for an in-house candidate, I'll say.
Thank you, Ms. Tobiasen. Ms. Romero.
I would say that the effectiveness of the superintendent should be what is most important. He or she must make a concerted effort to communicate the needs and accomplishments of the district in a variety of formats through written reports, communication with the media, public meetings, and attendance at school events. That person should always be active in the community, and no matter where they live, they should serve and live for the purpose of our students and their well-being.
Thank you, Ms. Romero. Mr. Crescenzo.
Mrs. Romero just identified Superintendent Amy Creedon. Let's look at this in a practical point of view. A community close by, Goshen. You've got the perfect superintendent for the Middletown school system, top notch. No one will do a better job. He lives in a $500,000 house. His family, his children go to school in Goshen. They're happy with the program. His wife works there, what have you. They're going to sell that house and move to Middletown for that person to be the superintendent here. You're going to lose some valuable candidates that way. It's just not practical. And you talk about Midi Pride. Nobody typifies Midi Pride more than Mrs. Creedon. To give you an example, the Christmas parade. She lives in Washingtonville, I think. She brought stocking hats for all of our scholars, the band, everybody. It was freezing that night, and everyone had a hat on their head. She's out there from the beginning. She organized most of it. She was there till the last student and left. That is Mrs. Creedon. She is at every function. She's here on the weekends, totally visible, totally accessible. You're going to get some guy from Glens Falls come down, doesn't know anything about our district, doesn't know our diverse population, doesn't know how things operate here. Well, you know, we did a search, and here he is, and he's going to take over, and it's going to take 6 months for him to get his feet on the ground. We did the right thing. We have the right person.
Thank you, Mr. Crescenzo. Mrs. Enriquez.
I absolutely agree that the superintendent should be residing in Middletown. If you're at that level of making decision processes for our community, you should live here. I would even provoke to say that if you have children at the school level, they should attend school here as well, because then you move with a different understanding when it comes to leading our district. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Enriquez. Pastor Williams.
So as I understand the question is really not about what our current superintendent. So I don't feel the need to defend that that particular decision. I think the question, if I'm not mistaken, is in regards to future superintendents. And I am absolutely in agreement that future superintendents, as I have been in the past, should live within the district, especially if they do not have any knowledge of the district coming in and they don't have any knowledge of the area. They should be able to come in, learn, be a part of the community. So I don't feel the need to defend what our current superintendent does, because she's been ingrained here for many years, working in this district, teaching in this district, and being very involved in this community. But I think that future superintendents coming from the outside, if they came from the outside, should live here in the district. I think that they should be a part of the fabric of what this community is, and find a way to get to understand it. So, you know, maybe I misinterpreted the question, but that was my understanding as we move forward, what would be in the future. But for where we are now, I think that we are. I think we have somebody that is ingrained in this community and is involved in this community and is striving to do even more so. So when that time comes, yeah, let's do it.
Thank you, Pastor Williams. Mr. Hammond.
Well, if Pastor misinterpreted the question, so did I, because I took that as future, right? Not the current, the future.
It said future.
And yeah, the future superintendent definitely should. I was waiting for the clock to start ticking down, sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah, the future superintendent definitely should. You know, I'm not talking about the current. I'm on the same page as you with this one. It is in the future. How do you know the community if you don't live in the community? How do you know the schools if your kids don't go to the schools? You know, it's great that you work in the district. It's great that you've been in the district for as long as you've been. And I have absolute faith in Amy Creedon, so I'm not talking about her. But somebody coming from the outside who doesn't know the district, yeah, they should have to move here. And I'll tell you, Mr. Crescenzo, I've been offered positions in places where the stipulation is, we'll pay you this much money, over $300,000 a year, you move for that money. And that's what people actually do in the real world.
Thank you, Mr. Hammond. So we have one final question from the community. I typically end all forums with a pretty simple question, so we're going to try to combine them all at once and then just get rid of them all at once. So the community members' question via the website was, what can, and I believe Mrs. Barone, you're up next, right? What can board members do to help the district achieve passing test scores in both math and ELA? That's the community question. And after you're done with that, if you can just say, what overall grade would you give the Middletown School District if you were the teacher and the district was the child? And if you still have time and want to, by all means, tell us why you gave them that grade. So if you need me to repeat that again, let me know. Okay.
Okay, let me take a crack at it, and then we'll see if we need it repeated. Okay, So first part of that question is, wait, give it to me again.
Sure.
Yep.
What can board members do to help the district achieve passing test scores in math and ELA?
Okay. So board members, they hire the superintendent, right? The superintendent then makes sure that all of the principals and all of the schools and all of the teachers are teaching the children what they need to learn, and not what they need to learn to pass a test, but what they need to learn knowledge-wise for their future so they can grow up and be adults and functioning adults in our community. As far as what the board members can do in addition to that, I would say that we need to, again, make sure that we are reaching out to the community and involving parents. We need more parent coalitions that are going to help bring these issues to light and brainstorm together. If we're not going to partner together, we are not going to be successful. And then if you look at graduation rates and how percentages of ELA are sinking in this district, that's what needs to happen yesterday. Like, not tomorrow, it has to happen yesterday. So we're already behind the 8 ball, we need to get there. As far as a grade, I would give us a C+. That's what I would give us if I was the teacher. We are nearly there. We have some great things happening. STEM programs, technology, we're almost there, right? You've heard current board members talk about what is coming. Well, why hasn't already been here, right? These are not new thoughts. I think if you're in the community, we parents have been talking about this for quite some time. So let's make sure that we stick to what we need, those changes, we implement those changes, and then move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Barone. Ms. Tobiasen, what can board members do to help the district achieve passing test scores in both math and ELA? And then if you can give your overall grade to the school district and why.
I think we need to support the staff with the necessary resources. We have put into the district instructional leaders so that they can assist the teachers with the necessary strength and support that they need in the classroom. I also think that if we need additional staffing, and in some cases we might, I think then it is our responsibility to ensure that our staff have everything that they need to accompany these goals.
And what would you give the school district as an overall grade and why?
I would give them a grade, I'm going to say of a B+. I think that we have an area to reach. I think if we look at graduation rates and if we look at our, and I hate to use them, the test scores, we'll see where the deficiency is. I'd like to see everybody as a 3 or a 4, and we're moving more and more students out of 1s into 2s. Let's get the 2s into 3s and the 3s into 4s.
Thank you, Ms. Tobiasen. Ms. Romero, what can board members do to help the district achieve passing test scores in math and ELA? And then if you can give the school district a final grade and why.
So first and foremost, I believe that the board members must be aware before they can make any recommendation. But in the event that they are aware, I think that we can help by coming together with the students, parents, and teachers. We can create consistency. We can create study groups. We can work together. We have great programs. We need to put them to use. Now, for the grading, I cannot say that I will give a specific grading because what I can say is that my experience with my kids in the school system here has in fact been positive. My kids have been, and they came from the city. Because they came from the city and the grades that they had there in comparison to here, they are in fact doing much better. So I don't have a specific grade, sorry, but thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Romero. Mr. Crescenzo, what can board members do to help the district achieve passing test scores in both math and ELA? And then if you can give a final grade to the district and why.
Okay. So what we're capable of doing is working with the superintendent, who will be working with her administration, instructional leaders, and other people when they come up with programs. So let me give you an example. We've been having trouble with the K-6 math classes. So this, math scores. So this is what they're putting in place now. There's instructional teams at each elementary school as instructional leaders, revised curriculum focus, professional development for the math teachers, small group interventions. So it is not a single answer to solve this problem. It's a joint effort of all the faculty and staff, bringing it back to the superintendent. At these meetings, the superintendent explains to us and the community what the progress is and where we're heading from here and what the next steps are. And we either support it or we don't. So if we agree with what's going on and how it's presented to us, we support it. It's put into practice and the test grades improve, performance improves. As far as giving a grade, I don't know. It's arbitrary. I don't know. I don't have a grade. I just don't have a grade. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Crescenzo. Mrs. Enriquez, what can board members do to help the district achieve a passing test scores in both math and ELA? And if you have a final grade for the district, and why?
I would agree with Mr. Bison. I would say supporting staff with the necessary resources when it comes to meeting certain benchmarks with providing more professional development. I would also encourage more extracurricular programs surrounding ELA and mathematics for all grade levels. I would give us a B. My kids, both of my children, had, actually all three of my children had a positive academic experience, but I would say it's a B because there's always room for improvement. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Enriquez. Pastor Williams, do you need me to repeat the question?
No, sir.
Okay.
I am in agreement with all of those that are sitting here at the table. One of the main thing that board members can do is provide resources to set the benchmarks. And in saying that, also not being afraid to pivot when something doesn't work. There's no one size-fits-all solution, and so we've got to be flexible. Each student is an individual, and some of them need certain supports, and others need different types of supports. And so we've got to be able to provide all of those resources, and the most important is, again, it's the partnership with parents. That while the students are learning, parents should be learning. I got to be honest with you. When we came to Common Core math and that a couple years ago, most of us were lost. When I was, coming up in school here back in the 70s. Yeah, I'm telling my age. 2 + 2 was 2. 2 + 2 was 4. 2 + 2 was 4. See, I didn't get that much of an education, right? But actually I did. But nevertheless, it's important for us to provide all the necessary resources going forward. I don't have a specific grade because, as was already stated by others, and I've been saying it all night, there's always room for improvement and room to work, and we've got to keep doing it. So,
thank you, Pastor Williams. Mr. Hammond.
I mean, how do you follow this one up? Because really, Vince, you hit it on the head. It's not a simple question. It's not a simple answer either, though. But, you have to provide better support to the faculty, but you have to make the faculty feel appreciated. Like, they should feel like they're coming to work because they love coming to work. That's going to help them teach the kids better, believe it or not. I'm going to go with that. We do have good programs, but yes, we could use better programs. We could, Ms. Tobias, I think you pointed out earlier, this building originally when it was built, there was hope that it would be open to the public in the evenings. Something like that would be nice, have the kids be able to come into a building like this, books, more learning, catch up with stuff. That would definitely help improve it. It really would. I don't think it's a one specific thing that you can do, though, to fix it. And as a board member, yeah, you work with the superintendent, You know, you make sure that she feels supported. She has to know that she has your support so she can go out and give everybody else her support. So that's kind of important. Everything has to work together. It's just gears working together. You know, I do agree giving the district a grade is a bit arbitrary, but I'm going to say a B because you have to have room for improvement. There's always room to get better.
Thank you, Mr. Hammond. Mr. Moore.
I would say first to start to improve math and ELA scores, it actually starts with implementing programs that start enriching the students at an early age. I've seen great success through a program such as P-TECH that I've been currently employed with, where it gives students the opportunity to also engage after school, having them focus heavily on English and math, which is, you know, pretty much the proficiency level for them to enter into the post-secondary education. What I've noticed here over the last, you know, year or so, I've definitely seen a huge increase in the K through 6 math here within the district. Now, we'd love to see that continue, but in order that to happen, we have to empower and enrich our teachers to be able to extend their hours of operation outside of regular school hours by offering programs Monday through Thursday or even on the weekends where focus heavily on English and math areas, that we will see a greater increase within the scores, especially at the junior high school level. If we're able to get them early, especially through 6 through 8 during that time period, heavily focused with them, bringing them into the high school building, having them exposed early, we will be able to see a greater pathway for them to be able to excel within those two areas. As far as a grade, I will say overall C+. I feel we have a tremendous way to go. And I believe if we're able to implement new initiatives and new ideas, we'll be able to get to that B level or higher.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moore. And that includes our Q&A section of the forum. We'll move on to our closing statements. Each candidate, if we can have 1 minute on the clock. Mr. Seaback, thank you very much. First of all, I do want to thank Mr. Vora, Mr. Seaback, Josh, and I forgot your name, Christina, and everyone else who helped set up the logistics for our forum this evening. They've done a tremendous job. They've been here since 3 o'clock this afternoon, so it's been a long day for them. So our closing statements, Ms. Tobiasen, you lead off, 1 minute.
In conclusion, I'd like to ask for your support in the upcoming school board election. Help me to continue my work to ensure that all students can be all that they possibly can be. I want to continue to support the administrative efforts to offer our students quality and sound educational experiences while maintaining one of the lowest tax rates in the Mid-Hudson Valley. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tobiasen. Ms. Romero.
I am running to continue to better our school district, assist in the introduction of financial literacy courses, and with my financial experience, I'm looking forward to help maintain and continue to lower our property taxes and better utilize our funds. I know that together we can make a difference in our children's lives and future. Our parents, students, teachers, and communities have a voice, and I would like to be just that. It would be an honor to have your support in representing our Middletown community in truth and service. Our youth is our most valuable asset. I would like to help with reassuring the safety, soundness of our scholars, and serve as a liaison between our parents, our teachers, and our schools. We must all jointly discuss matters affecting our community, including our students and board, and work on promoting excellence. We must all be dedicated and consistent to students, parents, teachers, and the board, as our kids' education and well-being is priority. Let's all come together. One last thing. Let's all come together and be the difference we want. It's the action, it's not the fruit of the action that is important. Please come out and vote on May 17th. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Romero. Mr. Crescenzo, your closing statement, 1 minute.
First of all, thank you for this. This was an amazing enterprise, having nine people and running it so smoothly. All of you did an excellent job.
Somewhat smoothly.
So I'm totally invested in this community, in this district. I've been doing this a long time. I have a strong background in education and in Board of Education. I continue to improve my performance by taking workshops. I subscribe to a number of periodicals, Education Week. I can't think of the other ones, but I'm constantly learning, constantly bettering myself. And like I said, Wednesday, I'm taking a 3-hour webinar about policy. So I will continue to work hard. I'm retired. I have a lot of time on my hands. And my wife said, this keeps me out of trouble. But I've got a lot to do, a lot more to do. And I serve this community with dignity and respect. And I'm going to keep going. So thank you for your support. Bye.
Thank you, Mr. Crescenzo. Mrs. Enriquez, your closing statement, you have 1 minute.
Thank you. I moved to Middletown to provide my children with a nurturing, safe, and diverse environment to grow into productive society members. When elected, I intend on prioritizing the following: English language learners community, students with disabilities. Other areas of importance are school safety, social emotional learning, staff morale, staff retention, hiring exceptional talent. Our children and staff need safe, productive environments. Our social emotional learning needs to be improved in our buildings and in our homes. Issues with bullying, physical violence, and mental health can be reduced by increasing social emotional learning. Our staff deserves to feel empowered. We need to support and retain our members that embrace our children as their own. We need educators to mentor as they were speaking to a younger version of themselves. I look at the landscape of Middletown and I see an enormous potential for our community to reduce our poverty rate, educate parents and children alike. Our district should be the pillar in assisting families to break generational curses and lead in building transformational wealth for current and future generations. Knowledge is power, and everyone deserves an exceptional quality of education. I provoke our community to encourage a student to run in future elections. If we are conducting ourselves with integrity, we should have no problem teaching a future leader. Teach the youth civic responsibility early. Let us lead with peace, love, passion to lift one another in our community. Assist me in setting the standard for our future leaders. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Enriquez. Pastor Williams, you have 1 minute, your closing statement.
First, let me congratulate everybody that's here tonight. Everyone has represented themselves extremely well, and as Russ and I have had discussions over the last couple of years, I applaud each and every one of you for stepping up to run. Whether we agree on everything, whether we don't agree on everything, is not the point. It's about service. I'm not good at talking about myself, as I demonstrated probably early in the beginning of this, but I will say that I've allowed my work and my life to speak for itself. My life has been a life that's been dedicated to service, and that service has been specifically here in my city and in this district. I'm asking and humbly requesting that all of those that will come out to the polls today will seriously consider re-electing me into this position as I humbly serve. Lastly, as I'm closing, I sincerely believe that what we need in this time of turmoil and this time of craziness in our world is a calm and stable voice that will speak reason. If the voices of reason leave table, then the voices of chaos take over.
Thank you, Pastor Williams. Mr. Hammond, your closing statement, 1 minute.
First, thank you, Mr. Estrada, Vesh, Brian, Christina, sorry. And I know Josh was here early, but if I don't thank them, it'll be angry at lunchtime. And really, this is amazing. Honestly, look around, at the people who are here. This is an amazing place to sit at this table with you all. It's a privilege. It's humbling. We have 27,000 plus or minus eligible voters in Middletown. And typically, what do we see? 600 at most? So, even if you don't come out and vote for me, even if you want to vote for somebody else, come out and vote. I would love to see this be the biggest voter turnout that we've had in years. I would love to get your vote. I would love a seat at the table. I really would. But come out and vote. Voice your opinions. Let everybody know what you're thinking. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hammond. Mr. Moore, your closing statement, you have 1 minute.
I would just say thank you for the opportunity to be a part of this. It's one of my first times. My wife is actually a part of a school board in the city for a charter school, and now I'm actually getting a full taste of actually what it would take to get on. But what I'm looking to do is to serve as a future elected member. I want to be able to provide the community with true insight. I want to restore the trust. I want to be able to be that fellow parent that you can rely on when it's in time of need. I want to also be an advocate for the employees and the faculty that we have here. I would definitely want to build a stronger relationship amongst the community members and also the local officials. And I'll just be honored for your support in representing this community going forward as your newest board-elect. And one last thing, not to throw a shameless plug, but I definitely would love the opportunity for you guys to come out on Wednesday and meet us face-to-face. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Mrs. Barone, your closing statement, you have 1 minute.
Okay, thank you. Thank you to all of you, and thank you to the Middletown community. So I am just so deeply committed to our city and knowing that we're going to make the changes that we need together to better our children for their future. Not only the future of Middletown, but the future of the world, because that's really what we're discussing here. So let's not lose sight of what we're actually talking about. We're talking about our children first. We need to make sure they are readied for the world that is going to be coming up very quickly. So I would say, please come out and vote for me on May 17th. And I know that we'll make our changes together. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Barone. What a great job you guys did. I want to thank you for allowing us to extend the evening. For those watching, we will not have a second evening. I think these guys did an outstanding job tonight to cover as many questions as possible. You ended up finishing 12 questions plus 6 rapid response questions plus an opening statement and a closing statement, so that's a full day's work. I am very proud to watch all of you, a very diverse group, running for the school board this year. As some of you may or may not know, there were times in years past when no one ran for the school board, and that there were no diverse candidates. When I originally went on the school board, I was the only Hispanic candidate on the school board. So it's important. Each and every year, we seem to get more and more candidates that are interested. I think that's a testament to our community and their ability to engage on their civic side and acknowledge their civic responsibility. Being a school board member in Middletown is very different than being a school board member in an affluent school district. It just is. We have different types of kids, and most people in our community accept that as a challenge, and a great challenge. A lot of the problems that we've discussed here this evening, whether it be drugs in school, safety on our school buses and in our school buildings, is not just in Middletown. We saw instances in a neighboring school district with drugs and kids overdosing, and it's an affluent school district. We've seen fights in other school districts. So that's permeated even into our own school district, and it is the job of the school board to help navigate those rough waters and make sure the district ends up on the right end of it. You guys have an opportunity to transform that if you are elected. For those of you who are not elected, I encourage you to continue either trying for the school board or keep engaged in your school community within your respective buildings, or even through committees. Hopefully, when the board gets together in its new school year, they'll put together some of those community liaison boards that you have. So I want to thank all of you for taking that leap of faith in yourselves and in our community to try to help navigate those rough waters here in the Middletown School District. So ladies and gentlemen, this concludes our night of Meet the Candidates Forum for our 2022 Board of Education election. We'd like to remind everybody to come out and vote next Tuesday, May 17th. Once again, voting is open from 7 a.m. until 9 p.m. at Middletown High School, Presidential Park Elementary School, and the Maple Hill Annex at Truman Moon. A reminder that you'll be voting for either yes or no on the school budget, and selecting 3 individuals from a pool of the 9 candidates you met this evening to each serve a 3-year term on the Middletown Board of Education. Once again, if you have any questions regarding the budget itself, you can contact the district's business office at 845-326-1195. And for anyone having questions about the actual voting or where you vote, you can contact the district clerk, Taryn Clark, at 845-326-1196. Ladies and gentlemen, these 9 candidates have now done their civic responsibility, and I ask you, the Middletown community, to do yours and come out and vote and show your Midi pride on Tuesday, May 17th. Thank you once again, and good luck to all of you candidates. Thank you.
Thank you.